Hello dear viewers, thank you for choosing the Manhwa compilation channel. Please leave feedback in the comments after watching. Enjoy watching. The adventure of our hero began with a crazy moment. He remembers how he was dragged into the cosmic vortex. Everything was like in a fairy tale. The spinning wheel captivates with its lightning. Andrian feels confused. In one moment he thought of another measurement. He felt freedom and sincere joy. His moment has come. He will become a master of martial arts. Can you imagine? Our hero even invented a group of beautiful girls in front of his leadership. The hero was so stunned that he did not even notice how he fell on the building. People around were surprised. A hole formed in the building. At the moment, the main character became confused and did not expect such a firm landing. When he regained consciousness, he could not believe his eyes and began to scream very loudly. Andrian was more exhausted than ever. His appearance was not the best, and he felt like a homeless person. Hearing the sound, he turned around and was a little scared. His next decision was to enjoy the quiet night and understand what was around him. After reading his comics at night, he did not notice how morning came. There was a wild roar outside. Andrian jumped up and ran to the door from which the sunlight was shining. He did not understand what had happened. A moment later, he was stunned by the amazing sight ahead. It seems that his dream has come true. He saw exotic fairies. They were very attractive and Andrian noticed it immediately. He was as if enchanted when he saw them. He could not tear his eyes away. At the same moment, they announced the recruitment of people to their gifted school. There was a crowd around the amazing creatures. People seemed to be under magical powers. One of them waved her hand very elegantly, and it seemed that they actually had magic. Their school was really charming. The stairs to the building were sea-colored with an exquisite shine. But if you can climb 3 steps on the stone stairs, you can become a student of the school. Someone shouted from the window. Entrants were dressed in bright clothes, and of course, determined. One of the guys thought it was simple, we'll see in a moment. And the stairs turned out to be magical. The boy was confused and said that his body stopped obeying him after the first step. In a moment, he fell. The people around were frightened. The atmosphere changed dramatically. The group of people behind were surprised. They were confident in the capabilities of the first guy. Our main character began to analyze. He had many questions. How he can climb the mountain of swords and cross the sea of fire. The girl went next. She seemed very calm despite the commotion around her. She stopped in front of the stairs and was quite confident in herself and her abilities. She showed impressive first steps, holding her head high as she walked forward. But after walking, half her eyes were on a wet place. Exhaling, she said that this was her limit. The educators were delighted that in such a small village there was a person who was able to climb up to the 6th step. They invited the girl to come later. She was pleasantly shocked by their words. Of course, she expressed her sincere gratitude for such an opportunity. The master turned to the remaining participants with the question of whether anyone still wants to try to pass this difficult test. One by one they began to refuse and were very confused. The master realized that no one wanted, so he announced the end of the set. People were grateful and accompanied him with sincere applause. At the same moment, Andrian dared to shout about his candidacy and passed the test. The crowd began to condemn the hero, to say that he does not know his place. He got angry, stood in front of the stairs and ordered to look at him, believe it or not. But step by step he confidently overcame the magic stairs. Walking forward, he thought only of how easy it was, and was surprised by this feeling. The hero was alarmed when he sensed a trick. He fell. At that moment, Andrian felt all the negative emotions that exist. The magician said, "Does such a useless person also want to have magical powers?" The main character was in despair. But jumping to his feet, he answered him that he should move aside. He was serious. Not even a minute has passed. He is back on the ground. The crowd continues to mock Andrian mercilessly. The fairies use their magic wands to watch this from the sky. One says to another that there is no longer a worthy candidate. But the second fairy looks at her as if enchanted. They start their way back with despair in their eyes. The main character gets angry, but finds some detail that should still attract the attention of the fairies. He shouts to them as loud as he can to listen to him. Immediately, he reports that he has a limited and rare collection of knowledge of the ancient sages. He wants to give it to them. They immediately reacted emotionally to this proposal, but they only said that they currently do not have a mountain guard in their sect and offered him to go there. Andrian was delighted with such a polite offer. He thanked them a lot. Standing on their magic wands, he decided to tell everyone who remained below that they were stupid peasants, and he was flying to the sect of practitioners. The same magician who struck Andrian asked what this dirty beggar was doing with them. Another fairy answers that he became their brother's disciple specifically to get into their sect. Suddenly, the main character feels sick. He feels disgusting. One of the magicians informs his sisters that he and Andrian will rest a little and continue their journey. After landing, he ran to the river, the boy behind him saying that he is really smart, but sometimes it can be a curse. In a moment, he says about the books, that if anyone finds out, his appearance will be destroyed. Therefore, he cannot let him live. He decides to kick him. The hero falls into a cliff and screams very loudly. With a bright smile in his wake, he says that he himself is to blame for this. Andrian falls into some river, falls deep. Having reached the shore, he feels a piercing pain all over his body. Getting to his feet, he was indignant, but did not lower his hands. He wanted to kill that devil. Walking along the path, he saw a wise man meditating near a lush cherry tree. Andrian was a little confused, and decided to get away from sin after all. The monk rose to his feet, began to say to himself that he was already old, and was waiting for the moment when he would wait for a person to whom he could pass on the Buddhist scriptures. The main character heard this, but denied the monk he is still too young to become a monk. To which he heard the answer, "The great universe is the progenitor of all things in the world." After that, the monk invited the young man to look at a copy of the exclusive secret book. The main character had a premonition. The monk took out the book, but it was not a public book, he simply confused it. Thus, our hero was frightened and decided to run away from the scene of events. The old man seized Andrian and expressed that it was a misunderstanding. The monk turned him towards him and immediately waved his hand. Thus, white magic came out of his hands. It was very bright around. The main character was scared. A magical action took place. All the charms flew straight to the main character. When he looked closely at the monk, he said that this is an illusion, and he looks much older. In a moment, our hero felt that a white, bright light was shining from his stomach. It was a miracle. The fear of the future did not leave his face. At that time, the old man gave him many instructions, having spoken that he should reject the status of a monk and grasp the true path. The main character heard the last thing. Find a method. Find a sense of righteousness. Heaven and man will be reborn and reborn. After the last word, Andrian saw only a great flame that surrounded the monk. Our main character had the honor of seeing the fate of the master, and he will, of course, remember his path and continue the work. He fell, but spoke words of great gratitude to his teacher. Picking up the stone from the ground, he began to toss it up and wonder what kind of magic the master had imparted to him. Clasping the stone in his fist, he was so delighted. Imagine, our hero changed the shape of a stone. Immediately, he began to imagine his future power over everyone. There were already so many plans in his head. Coming to his senses, he sat down by a tree, closed his eyes, and began to analyze how he could reveal the depths of this power. In a moment, some rectangular detail appeared in front of him. "What kind of fragment is this?" he asked. Not even a minute had passed when the flowers in the bushes began to sparkle in front of him. Andrian was as hungry as a wolf. He decided to pluck these brilliant flowers and eat them. He liked the taste of them, and of course decided to keep them in his wallet for later. The hero was delighted. He felt a great rush of energy. Having taken a second step, he suddenly finds himself in the air. There is no more ground under his feet. He realizes that he is falling, and it is not clear to whom he is shouting for help. 3 days have passed since the last event. Andrian has mastered his new opportunities and decides to change his location. In the middle of the forest, a group of people consisting of 2 boys and a girl. They ask her if she wants to have a drink with them, to which the other answers, "Where are you in such a hurry?" They were completely unfamiliar. She answered them with frightened eyes. Andrian appears somewhere in the trees. He sees this picture. He thought about what? He just came down from the mountain and he can already become a hero for that girl and use the boys as his pair. The boys put their hands on the girl with the words that they will not offend her in any way. She agreed and took one by the hand. But she didn't just take it, but used a suffocating technique. Her expression was very confident. A blow with a hand, followed by a kick. Her movements were clear and very fast. A moment later, the boys were on the ground, writhing in pain. The girl told them that they were very strong in appearance, but she had only one way out, to beat them. Our hero was shocked by such power. He realized that he had better leave. However, the girl noticed him. Immediately, she grabbed him by the things, saying, "Do you want to run away? Never. Answer, are you with them?" The main character was stunned by such actions, at first glance, of an ordinary girl. Andrian began to cry. He shouted at her that it was not his fault. He was just passing by. The girl answers him that, "Well, maybe you are not one of them." At that moment, the hero was in despair, starting to thank her for the fact that she did not beat him. Seeing her next to him, of course, he liked her. After telling him that she was going to another city, he realized that he also needed to go there and asked if he could go with her. Suddenly, She saw flowers in his pocket, but it turned out that they were not flowers at all, but a spiritual root. She informed him of this with great surprise. She was stunned at the sight of this root. The girl told him that it was a medicine that was very rare and priceless. Since our hero really liked the girl, he decided to kindly give these roots to her. She did not believe it, began to hug him very tightly and thank him. Andrian was as if in seventh heaven with happiness. They arrived at their destination. He asked her why there are so many people here, to which he received the answer that there is nothing unusual about it. It is an incredible place, and of course, everyone wants to become members of this sect. There were masters with their magic wands. One of them said that any person who climbs the stone steps and walks 3 steps will be a member of the school. Andrian was in despair. "Is this again?" he said. The first person who left fell before he had gone halfway. An acquaintance of our hero, challenged to be a friend, spoke her words with confidence. She took the first step. The second, the fourth. "I am simply incredible. I will pass this way," she told herself, encouraging herself. The crowd was in shock. They expressed words of pride for this young girl. At that time, Andrian seemed to freeze and looked at his friend with his mouth open. "There was only one thing in my head. If I fail the exam again, I will be very embarrassed, because she is waiting for me." With a gleam in his eyes and a confident body posture, he said that he would try not to be a fool. After making a big gesture and closing his eyes, he tuned in. Later, he stepped forward. With a smile on his face, he hears the words that he passed the test. The crowd was delighted. People shouted, "Wow!" Deep down, Andrian was delighted with himself. He was bursting with happiness. The girl was also delighted. She was happy for him and praised him. To which our hero replied that it was easy. He was very ashamed, but in his head he praised himself for not being ashamed in front of his girlfriend. After that, the participants saw in front of them a huge rock, which had the name Tao Rock. They listened to the master's speech. "To achieve immortality, you must be one with the rock. After that, you will be able to influence the sky and the earth with your power. If you reach the top, you will be able to soar in the sky, move mountains and seas." Also, he spoke about the division of different magical people into spheres, about how they also have levels, like the 9 heavens. The main character was impressed by the master's speech. His girlfriend supported him. The master gave instructions on the methods of the sect and how not to feel hungry. At that time, the participants behind bowed, thereby thanking him. At the end, he added that they would meditate right in the middle of nature for 3 months. All participants sat down and began practice. They were focused on getting it right. Andrian decided to practice not only the methods of purity, as the master said, but also the Buddhist sutra. 3 months have already passed since the last event. Time flew quickly. Believe it or not, our main character has already learned how to lift a large stone using his own strength. After carefully placing it on the ground, the entrants heard sounds from above. One of the masters informed them that the foremen are already here. The participants walked confidently, already with a large baggage of knowledge. In front of our hero and his girlfriend, there were 2 girls who were discussing the results of the meeting. They were a little shocked by the fact that they will have to pass another month of exams. One of them said, "We have been here with you for a long time, and it is still very difficult to become an inner disciple." Andrian immediately understood that this was even worse than the college entrance exams. But his girlfriend did not give up and encouraged him. She suggested choosing a new place for practices. Turning off the trail, a very beautiful view of the waterfall and mountains was visible. It was touching. Of course, a friend suggested staying in this very place with beautiful views. Andrian agreed. He liked this place very much. Suddenly, a group of people appears from the trees. The girl in front of them speaks to her brother. "Why not give them this place? I see that they also like the place. I don't think they will give in," she said, turning to her brother. By the way, her brother was an inside member of the Heavenly Emperor sect. Joe replied, "There is no need for us to worry. There are not many people in the sect who would dare to go against our family." A dialogue started between him and Andrian. He politely asked to give up his seat. But our hero confidently answered that they liked it too, and their family can find another place. Our hero had only thoughts in his head that this man would take his sister and leave. Joe was persistent. He told the hero that he wasn't going to leave because there was nothing he couldn't get. The main character asked the ego to demonstrate how he wants to get the place. There were people behind the boys. They were discussing how the main character dared to go against the family of the inner sect. A man from the family informed him about that. He warned him not to blame him later. The people who stood between them directly laughed at our hero. He was a little shocked. In a moment, the hero confidently throws a giant stone with the help of his legs. The ball hits the body of the person who condemned it. It was epic. The crowd watched this man fly with great speed. Everyone was surprised. He landed. Blood came from his mouth. It was really serious damage to the body. Our main character was pleased with himself, and Maya, his girlfriend, kept her eyes on him. People whispered. They could not understand where he had such great strength. Angry Joe ordered his wards to get rid of our hero, because he offended the members of the sect. They surrounded him, but Andrian looked confident and determined. The first person who attacked him talked to him about whether he wanted to be a hero, because he didn't even come close to being a hero. The main character is faster. He hits directly in the face faster than the opponent. He flies away into the very trees with the words that this cannot be. He fell straight like that sack of potatoes. It was really dramatic. After coming to his senses, he ordered his colleagues to attack together for a more effective battle. They activated their power, and the people watching were shocked to see 3 4th-level masters attack at the same time. You can imagine, Andrian did not doubt himself for a second. He repelled the attack of all 3 rivals. The crowd was simply in shock. They could not believe their eyes. They felt anger. His girlfriend informed him that he had beaten them badly, but they deserved it. At this moment, Joe shouted to him, "I give you one last chance. Bow to me and beg for mercy. Break your hands and leave the Heavenly Emperor sect." Our hero was surprised at these words, saying in response, "Who is he that he should bow and apologize?" Immediately, he throws a stone with his foot and says, "Do you think you deserve this?" From such an incredible force, the stone breaks into pieces right in the air. Without wasting time, his opponent takes out a magical and very large sword. Andrian was a little confused and asked Maya what it was, to which she replied that it was a spiritual weapon. His friends said that there are several types and levels of weapons on this continent, but our hero did not know about this before. With confidence in his eyes, Joe tells him that he gave him a chance. Be careful. Magical weapons are not to be taken lightly. These are the last words that a friend said to a hero. Having made a big move together, the hero begins to confidently step forward to meet the opponent. People around were shocked by his grumbling, but the enemy was not simple. He swung at him with his magic sword. Looking into each other's eyes, both were serious and determined. Andrian leaps off his mount as hard as he can, while his opponent lands on the ground, passing our hero's feet. Joe was indignant. Out of anger, he takes off his shirt and jumps upstairs with the words, "Let's see how you fight that blow." In the next life, be smarter and learn to distinguish who can be provoked and who can't. With these words, the opponent flew straight at the main character. His sword is inches from Andrian's eye. Maya was frightened and shouted to him to run away urgently. People around discussed what was happening and concluded that it was over. Believe it or not, our hero deflected the opponent's sword in time using a protective dome. He shocked Joe. The opponent did not understand what to do because he did not expect such a result of events. He was very angry. Using the moment, the hero hits the opponent directly in the solar plexus with incredible force. Blood is pouring. Joe flies right into the thicket of the forest. It was epic. The crowd was shocked. They were surprised by the power of Andrian. The opponent fell to his knees, blood flowing from his mouth. Joe could no longer fight and invited people to kill our hero with his sword. After, he will give him the spiritual sword. But people were in the cheek somehow. The hero brought him to his knees, a man who is in the inner sect. The opponent rose to his feet and said to the hero that he advises him to remember this day, and that he should not run away next time. The main character was more confident than ever. Swinging at the opponent, he said, "I hate people like you," and hit him right in the face. Joe fell down mercilessly, as if he had lost consciousness. In turn, our hero was stunned by some threats towards him. In the end, the wards take out the unconscious Joe. Our hero advises them to leave as soon as possible, because they have to train for what? Receives the answer that when the opponent's brother finishes training, he will come for his soul. The crowd dispersed. Maya approached her friend and asked if everything was okay. "Yes, it's fine," he replied. Andrian takes her hand, but she does not understand anything and asks him what his girlfriend means. The two of them were in a difficult position. During an incredible sunset, our hero explained what a girlfriend means to him. People with close relationships, a girlfriend of a boyfriend of a girl. Embarrassed, she asked him if he was her boyfriend, to which the hero said that yes. Now, he is her only boyfriend. A whole month has passed since the bright adventures of our hero. Early in the morning, he wakes up outside by a tree and yawns. Surprised, Andrian hears the question to himself in a flirtatious voice, whether he has woken up. At that time, his friend was sitting on a tree and holding a large chicken in her hands. She asked him if he was hungry and offered to share the food. Looking at Maya with loving eyes, he was captivated. Suddenly, they heard a wild noise. Looking at each other, they were surprised. We looked where the noise was coming from. There was a bright light, as if it were a portal. These were the masters of the sect. As always, their appearance was restrained and wise. "The tournament for the inner circle is open," he said in his loud voice. The conditions were simple. Choose a participant from 7 circles, and 1 person from each circle will be accepted. Our hero was addressing someone, but he was interrupted by another participant who was already in the ring. "The first battle has begun. 1, 2 swings, and the results of the first pair in the tournament are already there. There is already a first participant in the inner circle," he thanked his opponent. Masters were satisfied with the start of the tournament. These participants were much better than last year's. One of the participants was delighted with this action. "There are so many talents with great skills," he said. Relaxed, Andrian lay on a tree and thought about what the prize for the tournament is: a spiritual weapon. And the people from below thought just about revenge from Joe and the audacity of our hero. In a moment, a hand shines from the sky. It was golden and very bright. Such clear lightnings came from her. A man appears. His name is Mino. He is from the small sphere, the 7th degree. He begins to shout loudly to our hero, "Stop hiding in your shell. Fight me like a man." Having seen and heard, the hero did not think for a long time and answered him that he is very loud, as if he is afraid that no one will notice him. The opponent reported to him that 1 hand is enough for him to deal with the one who harmed Joe and his younger ones. Today he will get justice. Our hero began to laugh. He laughed at the fact that this man could handle him with 1 hand, so that in the event of a loss he would have no excuses. The crowd also jeered. As always, the protagonist was confident and immediately flew at the opponent with his fist. Mino was momentarily confused by the hero's speed. Joe flew at him, at which time he used magic as a defense. The hero told him that he is very merciful and does not even show resistance. The opponent was angry. After shouting that he was going to die, the opponent swung at the protagonist with great speed. But Andrian did not waste time. He put his hands up in time for protection. The opponent was in shock. The second attack from the opponent, the hero repels it. Imagine, the main character still has time to comment on the fight. He declares that the opponent's left hand is so cute. His girlfriend replies that he is so funny. In Mino, the power of the opponent is completely tearing off the roof. Our hero does not waste time and kicks him directly into the body with his leg. The opponent falls behind the ring, and his body jumps like a jumper. The opponent was very divorced. He stood up and said that he had never been so humiliated in his life. He wanted to kill him. He flew up with his sword, his eyes just burning with rage. Andrian did not expect such a turn of events. The opponent flew to the ring with the words, "Andrian, die." Our hero immediately repels the opponent's attack, putting him in a difficult position. The main character again, showing my confidence, skillfully repels the opponent with words. Whether he wants to scare him again, the hero turned to the opponent. "What happened to your mercy? Such impudence to go back on your words. You really used a spiritual weapon. I will beat you to death." Immediately, the main character punches him in the face himself. It was very epic. The crowd was simply stunned. Everyone stood with their mouths open. "You think you're so strong with a sword? It's some kind of joke," said the hero. After starting to control the ball, the hero said that even a big weapon would not help him overcome the main character. So the 7 inner disciples are finally chosen. Maya was happy for her friend. Suddenly, someone spoke behind our hero. "Is that you, Andrian?" It was a boy named Lino. He was stunned by the hero. How dare he take what seemed to be his spiritual sword? Lino was a friend of Mino. He told him that our hero offended him, took the sword that his friend gave him. They were both furious. The protagonist did not waste time. He approached this friend and humiliated him a little, saying that the milk on his lips had not yet dried. What? He was indignant at the words of the hero. He did not understand how he dared to talk to him in such a tone. Lino began to use his magic. A magic circle formed above his head. Our hero pointed his sword at him, asking him if he was a good fighter. I believe that his words were said with subtle sarcasm. After jumping from the ground, the hero pretended that he was stronger. But suddenly, the sword breaks into pieces in the air. Andrian's face lost its confident look. People understand that it was not a simple sword, but a sword that turns into a tower. They called it the Tower of Soul Practice. Lino's older brother gave it to him to protect himself during his brother's absence. He confirmed this theory and told that it was a secret weapon, and it would be an honor if our hero died under it. A gigantic tower really formed between them. Everything around sparkled, and the tower kept growing. A friend was worried about her friend and asked to be more careful. Covering his face, he answered, "Good." The protagonist was shocked by the turn of events. His opponent was in a frenzy and seems to have used another power. In a moment, dragons were flying around the tower. They were red-orange, like fire. They surrounded the hero, and he did not know what to do in this situation. The opponent told him not to even ask to resist. These were the 9 dragons, a secret technique. Even a master of the realm of consciousness would be crushed by this power. Everything begins to shrink. Our hero is already in complete despair. He does not know what to do. He begins to remember all the key moments of his life, as if before death. Suddenly his eyes shone. He shouted that he did not want to die. It seems that his faith in himself has returned. In a moment, the tower begins to fall and seem to split into pieces. Lino does not understand what is happening at all. He is delirious. Everything around sparkles and explodes. The crowd of people is also in shock. Maya looked at it with her mouth open. The ragged Andrian said that he almost died from this cursed tower. Taking the opponent by the skin, he suddenly got scared and asked not to touch him. Our hero smiled and coquettishly laughed at his words. Wasting no time, he hit him right in the face, and he flew away. The main character urged not to hide to his brother, who was allegedly covered by Lino. The opponent writhed in pain lying on the ground. People around threatened the hero, saying that his brother would not forgive such an act. A man approached Lino and said that he wanted to see the person who did this. People raised their eyes and were shocked by this man. It turned out to be Sid, Lino's brother. He was stunned by the wounds on his brother's body. The protagonist looked at him with contempt and said, "What a powerful aura." The opponent looked at him with the indifference of his words. He was confident in himself and in his future actions. In an instant, he started using his magic. It was so dazzling. It was a magic cord. It wrapped around the hero. He shouted that he could not break free. Suddenly, he managed to break free from these shackles. Sid was in shock. One of the women, named Yuli, congratulated our hero on the successful achievement of soul embodiment. He was the first of the sect's new generation to do so. Sid was already going to run away from this event. His brother was very angry. At first glance, I think, our hero liked the new heroine. Maya was stunned by his looks. "You pervert, what are you looking at?" she told him. Andrian immediately began to thank her for her salvation. "Sister, I missed you so much," said Maya to her sister. I think you have already imagined the face of our hero at this moment. It turns out that the friend of the hero did not tell her sister what. She arrived in this place for 2 months. The main character still did not believe that they were sisters. She decided to pass on the immortal spiritual route. Yuli began to answer that she could not accept such a valuable gift. The hero joins this conversation. He also advises to accept the gift, since she saved him. But finally, she agreed. In a moment, her sister invites her to come back with her. The main character and his girlfriend were a little confused. Clenching her fist with a trembling voice, Maya could only say, "I." She answered her sister, saying that Andrian would then be left alone. They waved goodbye and Yuli headed home. Our hero was a little moved by the words of his friend. "You are so kind to me," he told her, and was a little embarrassed. Suddenly, he offered her to thank him with his body. She did not understand this and replied, "Who needs your body?" A man hid near the building in which they were. Sitting on the bed, he asked her when he could marry her. Immediately, she answered in an outrageous voice, who told him about what she would marry him. Changing the subject, he asked Maya to tell him something interesting about this world. She was a little surprised as it was the first time she had seen him so serious. She began the story with the fact that this world is known as theory. On Earth, many astronomers have speculated that this small purple star, which is far from Earth, is another source of life in the universe. But the people of the Earth will never know that there really is life here. At the same time, our hero realized that he had passed through time and space. He began to think and analyze a lot. His next question was how forces are divided in this world. There are currently 4 main forces at work. They are called in turn, the first, the second. But in fact, there are several more hidden clans that have existed for many generations since time immemorial. They are even scarier and much stronger than the 4 sects. Andrian immediately became fixated on these unknown forces. His girlfriend was bitter. She explained to him that these are hidden clans, and ordinary people do not know about them. Then, he asked her for the main and great power. This is the second force. This place was originally the remains of the original sacred Taoist sect. After the sect disappeared, an incomparable hero took over this land and established the Heavenly Emperor sect, which is still thriving. The protagonist was shocked by Maya's knowledge. He asked her how she knew all this. "Grandfather told me everything," was her answer. With 5 days to go, she asked to take the route and offered to continue training. But suddenly, she remembered something. With a flirtatious look, she promised him to tell him something else interesting a little later. Our hero immediately became frightened. He began to think about risks. She said the worst thing was the body exploding. He was even more scared than a minute later. A friend asked to eat his root. and if he does not eat it, she will no longer be his girlfriend. The hero immediately agreed with her. The main character began to quickly eat everything. She put her hands on his back. Control your sea of consciousness and allow your spiritual co-consciousness to enter your body, she told him. They closed their eyes and some action began. Purifying his body from the bones to the marrow, the practitioner reveals the powers hidden within him. Suddenly, something went wrong. Maya was afraid. Why, there is so much spiritual power in his body. At that time, the hero was all glistening with pink current. In a moment, everything was as yellow as gold. Our hero was in despair. He thought that his body would explode now. He did not expect such strength in his body. He did not want to die. So he turned to the copper fragment to save him. By using the spirit to develop the body, divinity to nurture the body, and willpower to harden the body, one can break the boundaries of everything in nature. Immediately, this fragment seemed to fall into his body. It shone so brightly that it blinded his eyes. And you know, he helped him. The glow even made its way through the roof of the house and shone like day. The man who was under the house was scared. It was a mystical technique for training the bodies. Those who use this technique at an early stage have a strong physique similar to a diamond, possessing incredible strength. The body cannot be damaged by ordinary weapons. His body seemed to be burning and floating in the air. Once a person reaches the final stage and breaks the boundaries of all that exists in nature, he or she will have an indestructible diamond body. The man who was standing under the building was stunned by this action. He did not expect that a person would fly in the air. The protagonist was floating in the sky, surrounded by a golden aura. Maya asked him to stop it, as he might alarm the entire Heavenly Emperor sect. The disappointed hero could not stop it. He again turned to the copper shard to hide it from prying eyes. Suddenly, he started to fall. Our hero flew down with great speed. He did not know how to stop it. After landing, his friend ran up to him. She started asking him what happened to him. She was very worried about him. He did not answer her. Maya began to cry very hard. She told him that he would not die. She would be his girlfriend. Immediately, the hero stood up and answered that he will not die, but she should remember her words. Maya was very scared. She was so angry and told him that she hates being cheated on. With the help of a coppersmith, he acquired a skill that helps him hide his level or change it. As shown here, he changed the 7th degree to the 5th degree. Our hero realized that he could control the power of a piece of copper. In a moment, someone crept out from under the tree. It was Maya. I know I'm very pretty, but you shouldn't be following me around all the time. Sooner or later, I will become your husband, said the main character to his girlfriend. She wanted to know how he could change levels, how he did it. He replied that if she marries him, he will tell everything. The friend did not expect such an answer. She was angry. Later, he remembered that she wanted to tell him about something. He reminded her of that. She forgot, but immediately began to tell. The immortal old man said that we live in a special time. She began with these words. Andrian was surprised and listened to her carefully. Someone from this era grasps the golden technique and reaches the heavens from the foretold legends. Our hero was even more surprised after these words. To reach the golden technique? To reach the heavens? He repeated. Practicing, I constantly explore the essence of the technique, going beyond the mundane, prevailing over the 5 elements, and even more. To reach the heavens. He asked her how strong this old man was. The friend replied that she had never seen him, but he was definitely stronger than the main character. Illuminated by the sun, with confidence in his eyes, he said that he would witness this technique and reach the heavens. Turning to his friend, he told her that he would follow the right path and wanted to protect her. Maya melted from these words. She did not take her eyes off him, but she defiantly answered him that she was strong and he did not need to protect her. He began to laugh, at which she said that the main character did not dare to laugh. After 3 days, they found themselves in front of a huge peak. Looking at this view, our heroes wondered what peak they would be assigned to. You will all be assigned to the main peaks today. Do not forget to teach others in the future and concentrate on practice, said one of the elders. Standing below, the students answered that they live up to the teacher's expectations. Power pills were given to each student in turn, and the next location announced. The main character saw and knew which peaks belonged to whom. After a little analysis, he realized that he would most likely end up where one of his rivals, Sid, was. But he will get the 2nd place. The main character was surprised because he had never heard of this place. Andrian and his companion went down to the new location of our hero. The man reported that they are in place and he should continue climbing on his own. Our hero was confused. He immediately thought about this is a trap. In a moment, the hero heard some noise. He saw people and was very angry. Having taken 2 boys by the skin, they were from a small kingdom of the 3rd degree. The protagonist thought they wanted to attack him, but they knew him and were glad to see him. Suddenly, a person appears behind them. The hero was not expecting and was surprised. Luke, the old man who met him. The old man looked very wise and was dressed in a long cloak. He was waiting for Andrian to appear. The old man said that this place was not comparable to the other main peaks, and there were not many good resources, so he decided to give him a pill. Our hero graciously accepted this compliment. After that, Master Luke took a break and gave free time to the students. After having dinner together with Lin and Tan, boys whom the hero took for granted, the boys were surprised at how popular the main character was. Andrian was glad of such kindness from them. They began to discuss Sid, about how the hero beat his cousin, and then the younger one. Sid is the main disciple of the sect. He has a secret past, and even the elders treat him with respect. The boys were surprised by the cunning of our hero. Immediately, the main character thought that his rival must have done something to get him here. In a moment, he closed the topic and asked the boys why they were here and who this old man was. They began to laugh and began to tell. They were wards of the alchemist pavilion, but they destroyed the pill bubble and were sent here as punishment. They added that the elder Luke was actually placed under arrest. Andrian was simply shocked by this news. He did not understand under what arrest. One of them quietly answered yes. His name is Luke, and he was an elder of the Heavenly Emperor sect. Because of the deviation, his power was forever lost, and he was sent here. Even though Elder Luke didn't do anything, he lost his power. But his sea of consciousness still exists. If anyone discovers him, he will be able to extract many of the sect's secrets from the sea of old Luke's mind. Now everything was clear to the hero. A smile came off the face of one of the boys, and he explained that the sect would not provide mortal needs such as food. Instead, they give pills as a means of existence for the body. They give 2 every day, but it's hard to quench thirst and hunger, not to mention Luke, who has damaged strength. Andrian, upset, told the boys that the elder had given him his pill. After this story, our hero was very angry. He did not understand why such injustice prevailed. Old Luke heard a noise and asked why someone was shouting so loudly. Approaching the boys, he smelled a delicious smell. They offered to taste delicious rabbits. The protagonist brought the rabbit to the master and said that if he liked it, one of the brothers would catch more and roast it every day. Bringing it to his mouth, he felt all the subtleties of the meat and already wanted to try it. Suddenly, the rabbit's leg just flies out of his hand. Some unexpected person appeared next to them. She was very angry. How could they roast meat like this when it is a great sect of the Heavenly Emperor? It was a student from another degree, and he ordered them to leave this place immediately. The brothers were upset because they had not done anything wrong. At that time, our hero was very angry by the behavior of an unexpected guest. The man was angry at the behavior of the boys and started waving his hands. Immediately, the old man informed him that the boys wanted to feed him talcum powder so that he would recover his strength. He promised that it would not affect their studies in any way. The guest began to be rude to old Luke. At that time, the boys began to laugh at his impudence, and Andrian offered him to speak before the guest. Closing his eyes, the man began to mutter something under his breath. In a moment, the main character confidently flew at the guest with a fist. The man was shocked by the sudden turn of events. The hero hits him with great force. The man flies straight into a tree. Imagine a tooth flying out of him, his mouth covered in blood. It was epic. The guest was shocked how the hero dared to hit a person from the inner sect. For Andrian, it was like an excuse to laugh. He called him an outcast of society. But the main character answered him that if he was an outcast who hit him, he was probably even worse. The man's eyes seemed to fall out from these words. The opponent jumped up and shouted to the hero to die. In a moment, the hero disappeared. The man did not expect this. He did not understand where he disappeared. A second later, Andrian said to him, "Eurytic, where are you looking? I'm behind you." The man was frightened by the words of the main character. The opponent turned to him, but at that moment our hero was already flying at him with a stone in his hands. The picture was amazing. The man flies away again and falls straight to the ground. There was a huge bruise on his face. He did not understand where the main powers of the 7th degree were. "You will wait for me. I remembered it," he told the hero. To which, the protagonist smilingly replied that if he needed help, he could call his friends for social practice. Later, the main character decided to meditate. Everything was calm. Suddenly, he heard some noise. He got up and went towards the noise. There was a group of people on the lawn who were holding brothers. One of them, named Van, the man who fought with the main character, was having a conversation with old man Luke. In a moment, Van saw Andrian. He was stunned by his sight. "It turns out, brother, you were looking for me," said the main character to the man. At what? His eyes lit up with anger. Our hero said that the brother is a good man. He turned out to be an obedient boy. The hero said it with cunning in his eyes. Leaping from the tree, he added that Vaughn had brought so many of his friends. In one moment, everyone was lying with their heads on the ground, swords scattered across the territory. It seemed that a hurricane had swept through. The main character wasted no time and picked up a sword. He wondered if this sword was strong enough. Suddenly, the sword simply broke in half in the hero's hands. Our hero threw the sword right in front of Vaughn's hands, saying that the first meeting was unsuccessful, so he returns it. The opponent was shocked by the insolence of the hero. He said that this sword was not a spirit weapon, but a lot of effort had gone into creating this sword. It seemed that his brains were boiling with anger. One of the gang began to approach the old man with not very good intentions. Immediately, Andrian threw a stone at him. The boy fell to the ground. But he added that one should treat elders with respect. He should get on his knees and apologize. The man was shocked by the main character's requests. He seethed with anger. One of them asked everyone to leave this area and leave. But our hero asked to stay for 1 minute. "You want to just leave and destroy my house?" he said to this company. The crowd was shocked. They did not understand what was happening. They told the main character that it was completely, but he did not think so. Can you imagine? This company of people really started to repair everything around. They were fixing the pole, the gazebo, everything around. Andrian was pleased with the atmosphere around him. Frowning his eyes, he began to think about something. People around were frightened by the hero's face. Taking the table, he sat down as if on a throne, holding a cigarette in his mouth. Everyone around him brought something. One of the men who was doing repairs sighed as if from fatigue. The main character, as always with a laugh, asked the man what had happened to him, why he was not doing anything. The man started screaming and talking about what? They didn't do anything to repair now. He was so angry. "If I said fix it, then you have to fix it. Or you can bring assistance from the secret kingdom to entertain me. And if you can't, shut up," was the self-confident answer of the main character. Suddenly, he notices that something is flying behind him. It flew straight into his head. He did not understand what was happening. Immediately, he turned and stopped this incomprehensible thing. Our hero, with a rush in his eyes, did not understand who wanted to offend him, but he had already repelled this goal. It seems that it was Maya, the main character's friend. Apparently, she did not know what they were. The hero informed her that his brothers were helping him rebuild the house. He turned to them, asked if it was so, to which the tired men answered, "Yes." Andrian looked at this with a sly smile and a soft chuckle. At that time, the brothers ran to Maya and began to ask what her name was. They laughed quite loudly. When the main character saw this, he was stunned. A friend was offered to change the subject and told the hero that she had been given a task. She wants the hero to go with her. They agreed to meet tomorrow on another mountain. Maya will be waiting for him there. The guys were surprised and asked the main character if he really wanted to go there. He answered, yes, to which the hero offered them to go with him and complete the task together. They immediately refused with a shout. The brothers began to say that it was apparently forbidden here. But in a moment, our hero disappeared somewhere. The guys were scared. How so and where he is? Later, two beautiful women stood near a large building. They looked as if they were standing guard. The hero seemed to be sneaking out of the bushes. Elegantly approaching the guards, he told them that he was looking for someone, and if they could help him. But Andrian did not hear an answer to his request. The atmosphere was incomprehensible to him. Having decided to come closer and began to circle around them, as if they were some kind of statues, he continued to question them. Suddenly, they put their spears right at the hero's throat. The women started talking about what? This is a mountain on which it is forbidden for men to be. The hero was a little scared, and said that they could immediately explain calmly. In a moment, the main character started talking about some flying saucers flying behind them. Now the girls were scared by such screams, but when they turned to the hero, he was no longer there. He decided to outwit them. There was a commotion among them because they had to find him. The brats from our hero's sect followed him. They saw this situation from the bushes and were pleased with his maneuvers. Later, one of the girls at the gate turned to her sisters with a request. Today a stranger invaded our house. We must find him. If you come across him, don't be sorry, but punish him properly. That was her speech. Hiding in the bushes and seeing this request, the main character became nervous because he came just to visit his friend. The more she told her whereabouts. Suddenly, Hiding behind the bushes, something very surprised him. "That's her, from the secret kingdom," he said. A very luxurious woman was walking on the path in front of him. She was dressed in golden clothing, her dress floating in the air. But in order not to lose his common sense, our hero still decided to hide in the bushes. In a moment, he heard a strange sound, looked out, the woman was gone. He wondered if she really had just disappeared. The main character had only one goal in mind, to get out of here and take Maya. He started running. The weather was very hot. Leaning his elbow on a large stone, he began to dream only of a sip of water. Seeing the river, he approached it and began to wash himself as if for the first time. But suddenly, he saw 3 women. The protagonist met 3 masters of the holy sphere on his way. After washing, our hero saw a piece of cloth floating in the river. He was a little surprised. Taking it out, he realized that it was an ordinary corset. In a moment, the hero heard a noise. He immediately tensed up. A second later, a girl jumps out of the water. She was wearing a pink outfit and had long blonde hair. She was beautiful and fragile in appearance. The girl began to climb out of the water onto the shore. Andrian immediately handed over the outfit, which flew off her. They looked at each other with open mouths and said nothing. But the main character started the conversation. "If, I will say," he said monotonously and slowly, "that I was just passing by, wanted to freshen my face. So will you believe me?" Telling her this with a big smile. After getting dressed, she immediately left, but she doubted the hero's words a little. Our hero almost lost control of himself in front of this girl. He thought she believed him. Suddenly, something bubbled in the water. The hero turned to the girl and told her that he had other plans and he would go first. But it seems that the girl had other plans for him. After his words, she clenched her fist. Andrian began to run like mad. Hiding behind a large stone, he heard her voice. She asked him not to run away, but just to talk together. The girl was a little surprised. She did not understand why she could not hear his breathing. The craftswoman began to get angry with the hero. She told him to get out because he was like a coward. "Until I cut off your head!" she began to shout at him. He was sitting behind the same stones. He held his breath, but it was already difficult to restrain him. Our hero decided that if the man said it wouldn't work, then it wouldn't work. Suddenly he saw his girlfriend. The main character climbed out of the stones and shouted to her. Then Maya stood next to that woman. But the craftswoman thought that something was wrong here and shouted at him. He was a womanizer and swung at her. Immediately, the hero ran up behind his friend and told the woman that it was a misunderstanding. At this moment, the 2 women stood in great surprise. It turned out that the woman's name is Sina. Maya immediately asked why she called him a womanizer. Suddenly, Sister Julia came up to them. She wondered what was going on. Later, they went to the lawn, sat down at a nice table, and at that time, they told their sister what had happened. In the end, Sister Julia and Maya laughed at this situation. But the hero's friend apologized and said that she completely forgot that men are not allowed here. Turning to the main character, the sister said that the young boy was not aware that men cannot come to the peak of this mountain. This was the first rule. To which the hero was surprised that because of this he was almost killed. Suddenly, the woman got into her clothes, and then, it seems, she got a pendant. She informed the hero that she would like to give him a jade pendant, explaining to him that with this pendant he can come and go from this mountain, and not a single teacher or student will be able to put him in an awkward position. Andrian was surprised by such a gift and, of course, thanked his sister for it. In a moment, Maya was indignant, and one woman in particular, she said that it was all her. Since she was the head of the first generation, the main character did not understand what his girlfriend was talking about and he questioned her. His face became indignant and he began to mutter under his breath about this unfortunate pendant. But raising his head with a smile, he began to thank Sister Julia again. Sina's sister felt embittered towards the hero. Changing the subject, the sister realized that they still hadn't introduced themselves. She started with Sina. It turned out that Sina is not only a student, but also the heiress of the Ice Palace, the holiday of the Ice Court. This means she has the power of ice. Andrian was startled by this information. He began to look at her without taking his eyes off. He could not believe what. He saw all this with his own eyes. Later, Maya told our hero what they were going to do. He was furious because they needed to go with Sina to the Ice Palace to find the secret letter, and then send it to the head. The main character told his friend that he suddenly felt sick, and it seems that he will not be able to keep them company this time. Suddenly, Sina thought cunningly. "Are you afraid?" she asked him. Andrian was shocked by her question and did not even know what to answer. But, in his head, he reasoned that this was a harsh method and he would never go on this adventure in his life. Not even 5 minutes have passed. the three of them say goodbye to Sister Yulia. During their journey, the hero thought about the fact that he did not feel hatred for his sister, but he also thought about whether she would harm him. Unexpectedly, a company appears and slyly asks the main character if he has become more energetic in recent days. Without being confused, our hero answered that he is fine, but, "Who are you?" he asked, turning to the men. The man got angry and started shouting at him that he is an inner disciple and his name is Maha. "Ah, so it turns out to be you. You shouldn't blame me. As far as I know, you never found your tooth," answered Andrian with a sly, pensive face. The brothers from behind began a conversation about the fact that the hero is so fearless that he offended the elders, for which he was sent to a humble mountain without a sword. After a moment, the protagonist closed his eyes and whispered something under his breath. Suddenly, he reaches out and says that why not pay him for it. Immediately, he returns to the girls and offers to leave, but in his hands is a sword that he managed to take away. Maha stood with his mouth open. He started shouting after them, calling the hero a reptile, and advised the girls to stay away from this villain. Sina immediately replied that she thinks it's better to stick with the young master and improve than mess with the scumbags. "Finished?" she asked them, but her eyes were like ice. A second later, turning around, they were all frozen, turning into a large lollipop. Our hero began to praise her, but in his head, he thought about how cold she is and that he does not like to tolerate such behavior. Later, they found themselves on a big mountain. The hero got scared after looking down and asked if they could pass there. Sina was frightened by such a height and said that it would take 10 years to pass. Andrian was shocked by his friend's words and began to question her, but the positive and energetic Maya shouted forward and kicked the main character. In a moment, the hero flew straight down from this mountain. The girlfriend did not expect such a turn of events. During the flight, the hero was struck by a sword, but he immediately caught it. Sina is next to him in a second. The main character took the sword as if it were his magic broom, but he confidently flew despite the fact that he complained about the fact that only with a sword like that. The friend replied that complaints are not accepted. Once your powers reach the secret realm, you can travel through the air relying only on your own strength. And suddenly Maya appears next to the hero. He immediately thinks that she has reached a secret kingdom. He asked if she had really changed her degree. Her friend looked at him with a flirtatious look, thus giving a positive answer. Our hero did not understand the answer and asked to paraphrase it. Continuing on his way, Andrian wondered if he was the weakest, at which the girls laughed. After some time, they found themselves in a small town, where residents were walking everywhere. Once there, the main character's girlfriend suggested that they visit a tea house and rest there. Perhaps our hero was too tired that he even cut into the person in front of him. But he was also angry, immediately shouting to the man why he was standing in his way, to which the man replied to look away. Suddenly, Andrian fell silent, seeing something ahead. It turns out that there was a tablet with an incomprehensible text for the hero. The way of the devil and the dog, no entry. The protagonist became even more angry. He turned to the man and asked what kind of foreign joke it was. He replied that he did not call him a demon. The man presented a situation where our hero is in the role of a dog. It was funny. Evil Andrian began to send him to hell and beat him with his fists. The man was shocked by such emotional actions. Then the man started talking about some girl in front, and that she said that our hero is the demon of her house. The protagonist turned around and finally shouted, "Complete delirium." Finally, they were in the institution. The girls were giggling, and the hero sat sullenly. But suddenly, screams rang out from the hall. Our hero watched the picture from the hall. In the hall, people began to shoo away, apparently beggars. One of the boys shouted a request to save Grandfather Chan. The rude man was kicking the other and simultaneously talking about how he dares to bother them with his smell, ordering them to leave immediately. Seeing this picture, the girls were stunned by the situation. They began to condemn the offenders. Andrian sat motionless, only clutching the cup more and more tightly. From below, the grandfather approached the boy and said that he had already lived a long time and it was time for them to return. To which, the boy replied that there are experts here and they will definitely help him. The rude man turned to the boy, saying that if he could endure 10 of his kicks, then he would help his grandfather. The boy looked confident and thought only of saving his grandfather. He knelt down, hands on the floor, nervously said to start. "I asked myself," said that rude man looking at him. 1, 2, 3, and he flies right at the little boy. In the end, the 10th blow passed. A river of blood flowed from the boy's mouth. The man turned away from him and said about what a wonderful day today is. But suddenly someone from the crowd shouted, "Wait!" He turned to the people. It was that boy, to say the least. He reported that the man had promised to save his grandfather. Confused, the ruffian quietly asked how he wasn't dead yet, adding that he promised to save the grandfather. But he cannot do it from this. His promise is meaningless. The angry and beaten boy looked at the man with big eyes. After a second, he seized him by the leg and said that he had made a promise of this. He must fulfill it. Of course, the brute did not want to listen to him and was already raising his leg to strike. Maya could not find our hero from above. A second before the blow, the protagonist is between the boy and the bully. He grabs the teenager and holds the man's leg. Looking at the man, he ordered to stop, otherwise he would kill him. Memories of the main character. He was surrounded by boys who bullied him. Grandfather extended his hand to him and offered to live there. When the hero was 10, his grandfather picked him up. His grandfather was not rich. He had to save even on food so that his grandson could go to school. Then our hero felt warmth and happiness for the first time. Unfortunately, when the main character was 15, his grandfather died. Andrian deeply regrets that he could not repay his grandfather for his love and care. Returning to reality, the boy in the hero's arms asked him to save his grandfather. Andrian always looked at his opponent with complete self-confidence. This time was no exception. Jen, this ruffian, looked at the hero and asked him the question, was he tired of living? The protagonist immediately replied that he would give him 10 minutes, and then he would kill him. You heard, he wants to finish us. The man addressed the people, started laughing at the hero. Jen looked at our hero and thought that some boy from the 5th level had decided to challenge him. A disgrace. At this moment, Andrian was giving the same golden pill from old Luke to the little boy. One boy from the crowd realized what kind of pill it was and asked who our hero was and where he was from. The girls looked at all this with surprised looks and did not believe that it was the same pill. It seems that the boy slowly came to his senses. Arriving, he was surprised and asked what had happened to his body. Surprisingly, there was not a single scratch on it. The girls from above turned to the boy and offered to wait for the protagonist there until he dealt with the bad people. He and his grandfather went upstairs and immediately began to thank them. Maya put a glass of tea to grandfather and asked him to drink it for health. But suddenly, Sina began to say something about this old man. Andrian interrupted her, saying that the time was up. I gave you a chance, but you didn't take it, said the hero, turning to Jack. What will happen now? He asked the protagonist. Immediately, the opponent flew away. At that moment, the hero said that he would destroy him. He fell, making a hole. Blood was flying from him. Jack thought that our hero has a strong spiritual power, and it is definitely not of the 5th level. The man's wards immediately began to shout at our hero about how he dared to attack their master. Kneading his fingers, the hero replied that they answered everything correctly. In a second, all 3 men were flying around the facility from Andrian's spiritual power. It was epic. One of the men said if he got us, Chief Jack wouldn't let him go. With his head held high, the hero replied, "Shut up." A group of men ran up to their boss, and he shouted that he hated the hero, as if he would still get it. The main character was about to leave, but suddenly a master appeared and informed that today he destroyed the place of their master, and he will not leave until he gives an explanation for this. They started a conversation in the very center of the establishment. All the visitors were looking at them. Our hero asked a counter question. Why didn't this man appear when people were in trouble? To which he replied in a calm voice that they are only mortal. The hero was outraged by this answer. Bastard, so you don't put a mortal's life at anything? He asked. He also addressed the people standing above on the balcony. Were they not before mere mortals until they had set foot on the path of immortality? People immediately felt ashamed. They did not answer the hero. The girls carefully watched the situation. The man began to speak his answer and simultaneously stomped his foot to attract attention. He made it clear that when he has power, he is only interested in the truth, not the lives of mortals. Our hero aggressively began to question. Clenching his fist, he swung and announced that he wanted to treat them fairly. The man did not even blink an eye. He continued to look casually, but suddenly, a big dark hand came out of his hand. "Do you want to die, snitch?" asked our hero. Andrian had only one thought, that this is a terrible aura, and it seems that he is no match for him. Out of nowhere, suddenly, an icy shuriken flies out. It flies straight into a large dark hand. Here the man was surprised by the turn of events. Sina was standing behind him. She turned to him. "Old man, didn't you hear anything at all?" she asked. "To hit a dog without asking the owner," she said that phrase. The main character did not understand the meaning of this thing. The man was stunned by Sina, by the fact that she is the heiress of the Ice Palace. The people around were also in shock. They started whispering whether she was real or just an imposter. Sighing, the heroine replied that they do not deserve to know the truth. After that, a friend offered to go. Andrian stood confused. The man began to apologize, talk about the fact that he had offended him, and asked for forgiveness. Our hero just casually looked as he followed his girlfriend. They still went on their way. The hero left saved, but offended. Andrian started whining about why they were going to some village when they could borrow medicine from a pub. Maya approached him and quietly said that there was evil in that old man. After looking at the boy and his grandfather, he was convinced of this information. There was dark magic over the old man. Sina reported that they could only fix it for a while, so to eradicate the evil, it was necessary to find its source. Maya added that it was actually taboo to use a magical source, even though it had been destroyed hundreds of years ago. Our hero thought that the only way to save the old man is to quickly find the source of evil. He also looked at Sina. He couldn't believe that her face expressed absolute indifference. Suddenly the boy shouted that they were there. Pointing his finger at the village, he said this to everyone. Our heroes were shocked when they looked at her. Believe it or not, all the houses there were surrounded by dark magic. It was strange. The boy turned to the man. "Chief, we have come to help," he told him. A man approached them and asked if it was true. To which, the teenager replied that these brothers and sisters are really capable people. He immediately began to thank them and express the thanks of the entire population. Sina's friend discreetly answered to lead them. The man led them to the village. There were people on the streets. Some were weaker, and some were stronger. He asked first to help those who are weaker. Something was not clear to the blue. The hero immediately asked what was wrong. The hero did not understand why everyone in the village was sick, except for the boy Nito, his name. Surely, the friend shouted that they are heading to his house. It was an ordinary house. Everything was normal in appearance. Everything was fine inside as well, and they sat down at the table to drink tea. While sitting, Sin's friend asked the old man when he became possessed by an evil spirit. Sipping tea, the old man answered that, probably only 10 days ago. She was surprised by his answer. Sina said that the old man didn't panic at all when she asked about the evil energy. How did he know that this is an evil spirit when he is an ordinary old man living in the village? She also immediately added that the answer could be simple. He is the owner of an evil spirit. Nito immediately began to deny this fact and say that such a thing could not happen. After a minute of silence, the grandfather kindly asked his grandson to go into the room to talk with the rest. He began to worry, but the grandfather confidently said that they would not harm him. A second later, the door from the kitchen closed. The boy left the room. Supporting his face with his hand, the grandfather began a conversation. He noticed Sina's observation, saying that the base of the evil spirit's power was destroyed, but she still noticed. "You flatter me," she answered the old man. Andrian listened to their conversation and concluded that he was the owner of an evil spirit after all. Sighing, grandfather said in a monotone that it was a long story. 30 years ago, no one knew about the heavenly demon sect. No one suspected that its power would be equal to the rest of the 4 sects. However, the demon lord simply disappeared, and then a feud broke out in the sect. Some could destroy their own for the sake of power. At the same time, the powerful sect turned into a battlefield. The main pillar of the sect died during the battles, and then it was destroyed in just a month. Then, the grandfather's power was lost, but he took the demonic sword of the sect and ran away. Since the lord disappeared, the sword was sealed and became ordinary iron. Then he buried it on the mountain behind the village and hoped to live out the rest of his broken life in the village. The boys interrupted the grandfather because they began to ask the question, what happened to the energy of the evil spirits of the inhabitants of the village, and whether the sword was sealed involuntarily? The old man answered only that this problem arose 10 days ago. About 10 days ago, the grandfather felt some changes and went to the demonic sword to dig. It appeared that the sword, which had been sealed for over 30 years, was slowly being released. Everyone around was speechless. They did not understand at all how this could happen. Grandfather continued his monologue. Since the mountain is located near the village, the energy of the evil spirit affected the local residents, weakening them. Several times the old man was in contact with the sword, which is why he suffered the most. The girls were shocked by such turns of events. The old man fell to his knees and started talking about not having the right to vote. However, I still hope that you will help me reseal it for the sake of the innocent inhabitants to allow them to survive, he continued. Grandfather began to cry and talk about the fact that he is to blame for everything. All the sins lie on him, but not on the inhabitants of the village. The protagonist approached him, took his hands, asked him to stand up and continue the dialogue. Andrian added that there are no good and evil ways. There are good and evil people. Grandfather did not harm anyone. They will help him. The girls thought about the fact that, unexpectedly, the hero is very understanding and did not disappoint them. Perhaps the grandfather lost his speech and just started crying, but he still thanked them from the bottom of his heart. To which our hero said that it was time for them to go. Sina decided to ask, after all, whether the energy of the golden spirit had not affected Mino. The old man thought silently. He decided to change the subject and thank them again for their help. Next to the place where the demonic sword is buried, there is a small pond. More than 10 years ago, when the old man was patrolling there, he heard a child crying. He decided to go in the direction of the sound. At that moment, he was very surprised to see the picture in front of him. And I realized that there was no aura at all near the reservoir. It was like a legendary lake. And the crying child in the middle of the pond was Mino. He added that he suspected that the boy was not a man, but a spirit created from the aura of that lake. Our heroes were shocked by this story. The daughter was madly surprised if the old man was sure that it was a holy lake. But the main character did not understand what kind of lake it was. He asked this question to his friend Maya. She told him that it was a lake of mysterious questions. Sometimes a person can see the past or the future in it. Also, in ancient books, it is said that water from this lake can be used in legendary magical medicine, and it will be more effective than immortal roots. Andrian was shocked by the information about magical medicine. He began to question. Barely opening his mouth, he asked what magical medicine was. Maya was outraged by the hero's question. "Why did you listen when I told you to learn the Buddhist canons?" she asked him. But she ordered him to listen attentively to what she would answer his question. There are many different types of medicine, from the weakest to the strongest. Magic medicine is a real treasure, life and death. Then the hero interrupted his girlfriend and said that everything is clear to him about Mino, since he is a spirit. Maya ordered him to learn the canons. Suddenly, grandfather informs the boys that they have arrived. It was a big hole in the mountain. Our hero took courage and said that he would go and check what the hell it was. Suddenly, our hero was called by a friend. He was excited. The girls froze. They didn't know what to say. There was no expression on their faces. Andrian did not understand what was happening to him. Golden magic and small sparks were floating around him. Later, a friend approached him and asked how he was. Why, the hero did not understand what was happening, but Sina was sure that this boy could stand up to the devil himself. Our hero seemed to be illuminated by a golden light. He did not understand why everyone was standing as if buried and asked to go to the cave. Grandfather added that the terrible energy comes from the devil's sword, and it is at the end of the cave. Looking at the cave from the outside, they could not believe that there is as much energy outside as there is inside. Before entering, the main character asked old Jean, his name, what level this heavenly devil's sword is, if it is so powerful. The grandfather replied that he did not have such information. However, the Lord once said that this precious weapon, though sealed, is still dangerous and ruthless. He added in his monotone voice. In the last 30 years, no one, except Jean, managed to get out of the cave alive. Sina's friend thought about the old man's words. And suddenly they push the main character straight into the gorge. His girlfriend asks him to find the right way. 1 second third stone, he flies like a jumper and eventually hits his face. When he woke up, he stood up and said the word infinity. When he got to his feet, he did not understand what was around him. Turning around, he began to assess the situation and the place where he got to. The hero realized that the spirit seems to be afraid of him. Running on, he was happy with such news and did not understand how they should be afraid of this sword. And lo, he ran to a lake of magic water, and looking ahead and saw a sword, he asked if it was the same sword. The main character did understand that above the lake in its very center, the sword of the heavenly devil is floating in the air. This is an incredibly strong aura, he reported. Suddenly, the sword seemed to activate. Our hero did not understand what was happening, unless the sword was under seal. The silhouette of a skull began to emerge from the sword. Their eyes glowed like red fire. The skulls became bigger, and the fear of the hero was even greater. Our hero realized that it wanted to eat him, and realized that he had to hurry. But the laser of the sword turned out to be faster. It went into the heart of the hero. Holding the wound, Andrian turned to his copper stone. Out of nowhere appears as if a large iceberg flying from above. She hits the hero and he falls into the lake. Our hero does not lose hope in the copper brother, and suddenly he really appears, darkening everything around with his golden glow. Even people outside saw this glow. The girls were very scared for the hero and decided to go to the cave to rescue him. A second later, the hero asks the question, "Where are you in a hurry?" Andrian appears outside with the words, "Hasn't he returned?" Everyone around was shocked by the quick turn of events. Immediately, old Jean asked the hero if he really sealed the sword of the heavenly devil. With complete confidence, the main character gave a positive answer and asked him if he felt the devil's energy. The old man turned around and realized that he no longer felt her. With a sly look and turning the ring on his finger, the hero thought that he was able to take away the devil's sword. Sina thought about it and said that the seal looked strange, and if Andrian wanted to tell them something. He immediately got scared because he didn't want others to know about it. Then the heavenly devil's sword had already started to seal itself, and I used spirit power to speed it up. "Don't worry, it will definitely be sealed in 100 or 200 years, he said with a trembling voice. Maya was happy with such news and offered to continue the journey. Sina's friend thought after all the words said. She asked them to return to the village and then rush to the ice palace as quickly as possible. At that moment, Andrian exhaled. When they returned, Mino thanked them for saving the village, and they said goodbye. After some time, they arrived at the ice palace. They were met by 2 women who guarded him. The woman was surprised, most likely seeing a man in the company of the new arrivals. Andrian immediately noticed that the women were not wearing anything at this time. He said this in a flirtatious voice, pointing to the woman's figure. Maya turned to him, saying how observant he was. The hero laughed. Changing the subject, our hero told his friend to go with Sinai, since this palace is a sacred place for nuns. He will wait outside. Sina immediately informed that although in the Ice Kingdom it is stipulated that men cannot come here of their own free will, but since he is a friend of Maya, he can enter. But she immediately added that if our hero is so polite, then he can stay and wait for good news. Before leaving, she coquettishly said that the ice field is not very peaceful after nightfall. They usually cover the mountain. The hero must beware of the wandering snow wolves. Night came. The main character was already coughing. He tried to warm himself by the small fire and thought about why they were taking so long to take the letter. Did this snow angel want to get rid of it? The hero came to the point that as soon as they arrived, he would tell about the settlement in the cave. Suddenly he heard strange sounds from behind him. The main character jumped up because he saw hungry wolves. There were 3 of them. They howled at the moon before running after the hero. Andrian decided to activate the dark power with the help of his ring, where this power was sealed. The argument for this activation was that he would sacrifice these wolves to the sword of the heavenly devil. With this sword, our hero cut all the wolves that happened to be near him. But there were more wolves. They were hungry and fast. The main character did not stop killing everyone he saw. It turns out that there were girls standing on the top of the mountain and watching the situation below. Maya asked if they were doing everything right. Sina answered in the affirmative. The security guard joined the conversation and said that the heavenly woman had a plan. Sina was interested in the sword. And from below, our hero was already insanely tired from the constant influx of animals. But suddenly a wolf of non-standard size appears. The hero raised his head and was frightened. It was really a giant wolf. It was insanely evil. The wolf began to growl, approaching the hero. The guard was frightened. She did not understand where the king of snow wolves came from. Andrian decided to use dark magic again and activated it. The guard told the girls that the strength of the Wolf King was not lower than the 7th heaven. How he was going to defeat him with his bare hands, she was alarmed. Sina gave permission for help to come for our hero, but Maya's friend did not agree with this decision. She confidently said that she believes in her friend and that he will cope without help. And indeed, the main character was determined. He ordered the wolf to retreat, because otherwise it would be bad. Today, my training is to kill this wolf, said the hero. Probably the wolf still did not understand what our hero said. But the Wolf King howled at the moon again, as loud as he could. He was the first to start the battle, flying at the protagonist with his mouth open. At the same moment, his mouth closed with a loud sound. Perhaps he thought that he had captured the hero. But that was not the case. Andrian successfully ran at his head, intending to strike. But suddenly the wolf rushes from side to side. Our hero flies off the wolf's body and falls to the ground. The roar of the fall was terrible. Even stones flew. Blood flowed from his mouth, and he realized that he had been thrown a great distance. Andrian did not give up. Looking at the wolf, he said that it was not scary. Starting to get up, he said that he would wait for the next actions. Jumping up sharply and starting to run right at the wolf, he shouted to him to attack. The wolf looked ready to continue the battle. Coming closer, the main character used his power to the fullest. Coming closer, the main character used his power to the fullest. Having made a great leap, he jumped up and spun with a somersault directly at the wolf, who was confused after the blow. They looked angrily straight into each other's eyes. Bam! A blow that blinded everyone. The opponents continued the fight. The atmosphere was far from good. Everyone used their spiritual powers. It was already sunrise. Andrian was all in the gardens. The fight did not stop. The wolf was also not in the best condition. The king opened his mouth and began to growl again. The picture was terrible. They were ready to enter the duel again. Surprisingly, our hero's face did not lose confidence in himself and his ability to win. But the Snow King didn't give up either. He was aggressive. The hero jumped up and was just above the opponent. He asked if he still wanted to kill him. The main character rushed at him with his fist and was ready to make his move with all speed. He tried again to use all his strength. Everything around him was in colors. Suddenly there was a big explosion. The earth was crushed. The girls continued to observe the situation all the time and were terribly frightened by this explosion. The Snow Wolf King lay seemingly unconscious, covered in blood and scratches. Our hero was alive. He was standing right next to the head of an animal that was almost dying. It seems that Andrian was losing consciousness, but he did not stop repeating that he had killed him. And again, suddenly there was a great flash, most likely of the hero's spiritual magic. From above, the girls could not believe their eyes that he still managed to kill him. Maya was simply delighted with the main character. She could not believe in his resilience. Meanwhile, he was lying unconscious. Several days passed. He finally came to his senses. The hero jumped up and did not understand where he was and what was happening. He was sitting on the bed, and his girlfriend was next to him. Maya immediately pounced on him. Why is he still sleeping, since they have to go down already? The main character immediately thought about what? She took the letter, and he will never see the Ice Girl again. The time has come to leave the Ice Kingdom and say goodbye. Our hero thanks Sina for her warm hospitality, to which she told him not to show off. He was inwardly overjoyed that their paths were diverging. Finally, saying that we will meet again. It was clear that they did not have the strongest communication. Maya approached her friend, took her by the hand, and said that she would miss her. It was nice. Sina even had a smile on her face and added that the door to the Ice Palace is always open for them. The hero was shocked by such sweet words to each other. Suddenly, our hero hears strange sounds behind him and immediately calls Maya. In appearance, they were strong people who were sitting on powerful animals. They were brightly dressed. The woman who was at the head of the group turned to Sina. She asked if she knew they were coming. Our hero immediately noticed how they pronounced Sina's name. He twisted his face. The girl clearly made it clear that she was seeing off her friends here. Mr. Zack saw Mia. He was glad to see her. He suddenly jumped off his animal. The friend immediately asked the guest for what purpose he appeared here. Happily, he announced that he had come to propose to Ms. Sina. Joyfully, he announced that he had come to propose marriage to Mrs. Sina. She carefully approached Andrian and asked if he would like to defend his sister. At this moment, Sina was so scared. But Zack decided to immediately respond to the hero's offers. He said that they have different positions. Sina's girlfriend is a lover of long relationships, and seeing someone like him will not be able to protect her. Sina decided to answer immediately. "Sir, how many times have I already explained to you?" she said, and was interrupted. "You have any respect at all? What right do you have to call her Miu?" "Don't pretend to be cool," our hero said in a defiant voice. Sina was stunned by the hero's behavior. Without hesitation, the guest offered to see how he would protect Sina. Many days have passed since the last event. When the friends were in the palace, Mr. Zack visited them. Sina's girlfriend immediately asked what he was doing here, to which she received the answer that Sen came to tell her with fear. The guest confidently began to speak for the fact that he had been devoted to his sister Sina since childhood, and this time he came to ask all the elders and owners of the palace to give her in marriage to him. Elder sister Sen was puzzled by Mr.'s question. She couldn't believe it was true. Sina's sister immediately said firmly that she was not going to marry him. Lowering his head, "You heard everything, young Mr. Zack," said the foreman. She added that the point is not that she does not want, but that she herself does not want it. In this ice palace, not even the head can force anyone. But the gentleman gave a positive answer, informed that he is sincere towards the celestial woman, and this will not change even if she refuses. After his words, he ordered the man behind him to bring something. The man handed Zack a beautiful golden box. The guest said that ice jade is the hardest thing in the world, and it took him a lot of effort to get it. Holding a truly beautiful thing in her hands, Jade will also help her sister improve her skills. Mr. Zack decided to kindly present this gift to Sister Sina, hoping that she would be happy. People around were shocked by such a gift. Maya was surprised by such generosity of the guest. Suddenly the man became excited, because this is the hardest and most indestructible thing in the world. Our hero's speech was not complete either. He said that you can just take an ice cube and say that it is the hardest. After all, anyone can believe that. "Just a simple boy who doesn't even know what polar ice jade is," replied the guest to the hero's comment. Slyly looking, the main character proposed an argument. "Who is this?" asked elder sister Sen, referring to Andrian. Sina replied that this is Maya's friend. He is from another empire and has come to pick up a secret letter. The guest's answer did not take long. He asked what the hero could give in exchange for the dispute. Confident in his words, the main character announced that he argued this stone was not as hard as it was presented. Mr. Zack began to laugh loudly after the hero's answer. "A bet on life, won't you lose?" asked our hero's guest. "As you say," answered the protagonist decisively. Sina's sister was tired of enduring and ordered them to shut up. What had they created here? To which, our hero snapped back to shut her up. She was immediately frightened by the audacity of the hero. Sina was shocked by this. She started questioning Maya if she heard everything correctly. The gentleman decided to put the jade in a box on the floor. "I want to see how you break it," he said to the main character. Andrian began to activate magic to do as the guest asked. Suddenly, a devil's sword appeared in his hands. He was sure that he would do this thing with it. Without batting an eye, he swung and struck straight into the middle of the jade. And indeed, after a second, the gift simply split in half. You can imagine the reaction of Mr. Zack. He was simply stunned. The box with the stone was simply split right in the middle. The guest continued to look at his destroyed gift. Everyone around was silent. Sen's elder sister asked if even the smallest spiritual power could break the polar ice jade into two. "Brother Zack, what happened?" asked our hero in surprise. The guest didn't know what to say. He just started calling the main character names. Suddenly, the man was approached by his ward. Sighing, he advised him to stop, or the ladies of the ice palace would be angry. Gritting his teeth, he agreed with him. The man folded his hands and said that he is ready to accept defeat, because he has only one life. With subtle insolence, our hero said that it was obvious and was already saying goodbye to him. In a second, Andrian yelled at him not to come to the ice palace again. The guest was shocked by such statements. "Damn it, let it fall on your eyes," he said, trying to hold back all his emotions. Mr. Zack finally announced that he filled in our hero, and they will definitely meet again. The main character agreed with him. After they left, Andrian wondered who this gentleman really was, but suddenly his thoughts were interrupted by Maya. She ran up to him, hugged him, and told him that he had solved the most unpleasant situation in the palace. Sina approached them and quietly called the hero. Very shy, she came up and said thank you. But he decided to play a little and asked her to say what she said again. Blue was not comfortable. The hero ran around the girl and reported that he could not hear well. Could she speak louder? The main character suddenly turned into a hurricane. There was noise around them. Finally, the older sister wanted to personally thank the hero. She made it clear that girls from their stream cannot marry someone like him. But he has a pretty good family status, and he is careful. The sister thanked him on behalf of the entire palace, and said that the door was always open for him. The hero immediately thought of Maya. They were walking and he was saying her name, but the friend was not satisfied. At that moment, Sister Sina said softly, "Ah, Andrian, what kind of person are you?" But the elder heard her words and asked her if anything was troubling her. "The era of prosperity is coming. The heavens are being reborn. As the most talented descendant of the Ice Palace, you must embark on this path," she heard from the elder. "But of course, the girl must choose for herself whether to go to her or not," the heroine thought. "Your words are my law," said Sina, bowing. While Zack was on his way home, his ward suggested to him that all the slaves should act to destroy Andrian and the sacred gates of the palace. Zack was so angry that he let his ward know that it was only thanks to them that he remained alive. He added that she is from a difficult family. The ward immediately apologized to his master. Zack gave instructions not to provoke this girl. If even one hair falls from her head, the whole world will tremble. But in his head he thought about Andrian. The hero does not believe that he will forever stay with a girl from this family. After a few days, our heroes arrived at their destination. The main character was terribly sick. His girlfriend tried to cheer him up with various jokes. The hero realized that there was no time to be sick, and he needed to get down to business. Later, a person approached them to whom they gave the same letter. He said that the mission was accomplished. Behind the closed door, they heard voices. The heroes were surprised. Andrian was surprised by such hospitality of the palace. Namely, that no one approached them again after the end. The friend did not hang her nose and was glad that they finished her. Maya informed the hero that she was returning home to resume her sleep pattern. He asked her to wait, but my friend was faster. Our hero was outraged by her speed. The main character went on his way and thought that more than a month had passed since they were in the palace. Suddenly he heard strange sounds coming from behind him, decided to turn around. Hiding behind a tree, the hero saw a raging fight between 4 people. It was clear that 3 of them were mocking the 4th. This guy was already lying on the ground. It was clear that 3 of them were mocking the 4th. This guy was already lying on the ground. The man did not understand who did it, and immediately started looking for the culprit. Of course, it was our hero. He turned to the group. Are they really insulting the younger ones in broad daylight? Seeing each other, a group of boys was shocked. They have already met. They immediately began to lash out as our hero dared to appear before them. Andrian asked them if they would avenge him, because they said that they had nothing to do with him. The boy who was lying on the ground said that he was already at the point of death, but our hero came. Nevertheless, he could have died already if I hadn't come. That's not the case, replied the main character in a menacing voice. As always, a self-confident hero, he said that this will be over, and they will turn into a ball of threads. He reactivated his finger ring with spiritual power. A group of people were also determined. They shouted to each other to get ready. The hero had a sword in his hand, and he told the boy that they would not do anything to him again, because after that he would not be able to stand on his feet for 3 months. Very quickly, the hero managed to break their sword, tear the fans, and throw everyone away. Leaving them on the ground, our hero said that he had long wanted to test this sword in battle. Andrian began to laugh very hard at them. But one of the men barely reported that he will not let our hero leave this mountain until his brother comes. It only took one slap for the hero to close his mouth again. You didn't hear what I said. You'll fall to the bottom any chance you get, the main character said loudly. The group lay on the ground with Andrian in charge. The injured boy was able to stand up. With a surprised face, he asked the hero if he had beaten them too much. Our hero joyfully replied that it's okay. They'll just lie in bed for 6 months. The boy was even more shocked. Suddenly, the hero decided to ask what the boy's name was. Pico, he answered in a low voice. Later, they came to the lake, and our hero threw stones into the water and at the same time had a conversation with Pico. But he decided to ask why he is so unhappy here, why he won't leave. The new friend replied that it is unlikely that some peak would want to have an idle student. Joyful Andrian suggested him to go to another peak. Pico was surprised by the offer. He did not answer immediately, he thought. Taking another stone, our hero announced that you can live there without restrictions and in complete freedom. I promise, he said, throwing a stone into the water. The new friend kept thinking, what do people expect from him? Is he reliable, and is his word true? Well, they have already arrived at the top of our hero. The main character joyfully began to call his pansies. They were so happy when they saw the hero, they ran up and started asking many questions. Andrian was in a bit of a mood. What 2 girls? The head was almost killed, he said. The 2 brothers hurried. They wanted to find out all the details as soon as possible and write down new techniques. The 2 brothers hurried. They wanted to learn all the details as soon as possible and write down new techniques. The hero was sincerely glad to see the head. He asked about the foreman's well-being. And the 2 brothers were nervous because they wanted to talk more with our hero. After talking kindly, the hero told his grandfather that he would prepare a delicious barbecue in the evening. He laughed and agreed. A few days later, the main character decided to meditate on a mountaintop. Allegedly, on Earth or on the star Vento, there is an eternal law. There are strong and weak. If they have no strength, they will be killed. There is no other way. Our hero thought a lot. He had many scenarios in his head, but having confidently come to the opinion that he needs to become stronger. One day I will enter the legendary peak for sure, he planned. This meditation was like a reboot for new spiritual powers. A few days later, our hero again arrived at another palace on a mission. He was given a piece of paper on which his mission was written. Andrian hastened to see what the task was before him, but suddenly he was stunned by what he saw. What the hell? He shouted. Later, he found himself in a flaming forest. He thought that Maya was able to send the letter, but he went on the mission alone. The mission was to hunt 100 heat of birds to get bird gall. Perhaps a friend, after reading the task, thought that our hero could handle it on his own. A family of firebirds lives on a distant peak. They are very intelligent, and most of them are 3rd rank, 4th heaven. Also, they can breathe fire, and their gallbladder is an ingredient for medicine. Since it is a bird, the hero thought that he might not even use a sword and not think about death. Several little birds indeed, he said with relief. Suddenly he stepped on the root of a large tree. The sound was not the most pleasant. And here, a bird flies from the sky directly at the hero. Andrian did not lose his positivity and was ready for battle. Very nimbly, he jumped over the flying firebird. Getting to his feet, he still activated his power and sword. Little bird, now you will feel my sword. With these words, he was already flying at the bird. In a second, he, our hero, strikes the first blow. The bird was red-orange in color. This bright color overshadowed everything. Having fallen a little to the ground, at that time the bird uses its power, which is fire. The battle is on. No one spares each other. And finally, the the main character managed to overcome the mighty firebird. He was standing in the middle of the remains of the animal. Suddenly, our hero saw a golden circle in the bird's body and took it out. He immediately wondered if it was the gallbladder of a firebird. The hero was overjoyed at this find, but other birds slowly flew to him. The fight was going on. It was already night. The hero did not stop fighting. After each killed bird, he kept a tally, and you can imagine it was already the 78th animal killed. The main character also did not forget to take the gallbladders to himself in a pouch. There was already the 99th bird, and still the hero felt tired. But the 100th bird never appeared in his field of vision. Suddenly, he hears some noise behind him. Hiding behind a tree, he saw the silhouette of a small bird, and immediately decided to attack. But it was indeed a very small bird. After a second, the chick started to cry. Our hero did not expect such events, and was also a little scared. Taking the bird in his arms, the hero realized that it was wounded. After a while, Andrian helped a small animal with his power. He said goodbye to her, and set out to complete the mission. But that was not the case. The chick ran straight after the hero. The main character wondered what he should do with him. He invited the chick to go with him, and it seems that he waved to him. Our hero continued his journey with a little friend. He decided to ask what his name was, but he never listened to a single sound from his friend. The hero turned to him, and he allegedly froze like an oak tree. It turned out that in front of them stood large men, and it seems that they were Mr. Zack's wards. The protagonist did not remember these characters and decided to ask who they were. Andrian immediately wondered how he had failed to notice so many people. He also asked the old man why they scared his pet. The man who was in front of everyone waved his hand, and abruptly the carnage began. All as one pounced on our hero. But the main character was not lost and, it seems, used his powers in time. Holding a baby bird in his hands, he stopped everyone. He immediately felt a strange feeling because he didn't understand what kind of power they had, but it might have been higher than the 8th heaven. Coming to his senses, our hero again heard strange sounds. Turning around, he was in shock. In a second, the sharp tips of the spear were right next to the hero's face. He ducked successfully while they could pass through him. As determined as ever, he was ready for battle, and his new friend was not far behind either. "Obey!" one of the men shouted at him and swung his spear. The bird was rejected. Andrian began to use his powers. Our hero and his opponent had close bodily contact. The spear flew away. The main character was able to grab a weapon very quickly. He stated that he does not like this situation. The spear he grabbed seemed unusual and seemed to be customized for each master. Our hero decided to fight to the end. Meanwhile, the old man who was the guide stood on a branch of a tree and watched. You can imagine, it was already a dark night. The main character still fought. He killed everyone who threatened him. In a second, one of the men jabs a spear straight at the hero. Andrian successfully turns away, but is slightly wounded. He was maddened by such an attack, a stealth move.
The old man in the tree raised his hand up. It was a gesture to end the battle.
All the wards suddenly froze. They did absolutely nothing. The hero was surprised by such behavior. The men hit the ground with their spears, and suddenly everything turned blue. They simply disappeared, allegedly created a portal to the sky. It was epic. But the old man remained. He took off his hood. And here, he decided to act. He flew confidently straight at our hero. The protagonist was self-confident and ready to accept the opponent's attack. Our hero was simply thrown away. Blood was already flowing from his mouth. The strength of the old man was such that the ground was in a large depression from Andrian, who drove over it. The man put on his hood again and turned to the rest of his subordinates, informed them that the mission was over and they were returning to the city. Behind the old man suddenly appeared a large gray cloud. It was dust from the wards that flew away. Our hero came to his senses and he did not look his best. He was surprised by the man and his power from the 9th heaven. "I surrender if the foreman is willing to lower his hands and spare my life, for that I have rare plants," he said, holding those plants in his hands. The man was surprised that the hero was still standing, but suddenly the main character simply disappeared, as if he was not there. He ran with all his might, holding the plant in his teeth. The hero thought that he would fight to the last. The old man shouted at him to stand. Hiding behind a tree, our hero ate this herb like a madman. The old man ordered the remaining wards to wait, because the main character is definitely somewhere nearby. Andrian began to jump across the trees with his sword as if preparing for an attack. And here, the man pointed to the tree and shouted that here is our hero. In a second, there was no one on the tree. Suddenly, the wards died as if by the click of a palm. They were killed by the sword. The old man blinked and was embittered. He did not understand what had happened. He died. People examined their murdered brothers. The protagonist was supposedly invisible and felt in control of the situation. He really ran like a small insect in complete darkness. Having decided to attack, the hero flew at them from above. His power and magic stone were at full power. "I am God," confidently exclaimed our hero. Andrian was already in front of one of the men, surrounded by his golden magic. The man tried to stop the hero with his bare hands. It was obvious that it was not easy. Landing on the ground, our hero was surrounded by a golden aura. People around were shocked by such a defensive dome. The main character really sparkled. He started talking about who wants to kill. They must realize that, in the end, they may be killed. And suddenly, the hero found himself in the sky and became an alleged star. Everyone around stood with their mouths open. In a second, the protagonist disappeared again. The men were frightened. They lined up in a defensive circle. The old man in a rough voice ordered them to concentrate and not worry about our hero. The man was so angry that he told them not to engage in such childish tricks. The wards were motivated, and the old man asked them to find a hero for him. Meanwhile, Andrian was already sitting on the tree and watching everyone from above. Suddenly, one of the men saw a spark in the sky and drew attention to it. It began to turn because it was no longer just a spark. Our hero killed one of the wards again, but the others did not even foresee it. The men's eyes bulged out of their foreheads. They immediately swung at the hero, but he jumped back sharply again. The hero jumped aside, but was close to them. The group of men were confused by such drastic actions. To be merciful to the enemy means to be cruel to yourself. "And it's not even about me," said the hero in a loud voice. The main character flew at them again with the words that they are just lying. He used an interesting maneuver, running in a crouch, when both men just clashed with spears. The battle continued. Our hero acted very cleverly, using his sword and his strength. One of the wards had such a look that he did not understand what was happening at all. He stood and looked at the hero with his mouth open. "Devil!" cried this man and thrust his spear at the other. He began to run away and shout that our hero is the devil and everyone should run away from him. And suddenly the old man stopped him. His hand was full of magic and rested directly on the face of the ward. Their boss allegedly burned the man with one hand, saying out loud that everything was in vain. Raising his head from the dead pet, he turned to our hero and asked if he was hiding again. "Boy, don't act like a turtle, or you're taking part in some kind of competition," shouted the old man even louder. But there was no answer. The man turned to the protagonist again, saying that he was left alone and ready for the hero's attack. The man even began to look for the hero. Meanwhile, Andrian hid in a tall tree, and of course heard all the statements. The hero decided to look out when the man was behind him. The branch cracked while the hero jumped from it. He thought that he would fulfill all the old man's requests. The hero very quietly approached the man's back. His sword touched his opponent. Suddenly our hero was shocked. Imagine, his sword was no longer under his control. The old man turned, and the time when the hero used his power to distract the man. Our hero began to run away and thought about how he could quickly hide somewhere. Crouching down behind a tree, he began to eat those plants again. Choking on the plant, he thought about the situation before. He did not touch that old man's vital organs, so he did not know how to get out of this situation. Suddenly our hero noticed that the air was quite humid and was glad about it. He took a stone and a stalk, starting to plan something. The protagonist was pleased with his idea. Suddenly, he reappeared behind the old man. With the help of his antics, he came up with another plan. Suddenly, with a crack, a stone broke away from the self-made catapult. The man heard this and said loudly that it is enough to run away from him and he knows where our hero is. He notices this building and becomes sure that the main character is there. And here is the time of Andrian. He resolutely took his golden sword. With a split sword, he hits the old man right in the back. The opponent felt the blow. The man could not believe it. The blow fell on the heart, and blood flowed from it. Our hero pulled the sword from the opponent's body. His weapon was also covered in blood. "If someone offends me, I will retaliate," thought the hero, looking at the already lying old man. In broad daylight, there were many corpses lying on the lawn. The picture was grim. At sunset, Andrian decided to examine the belongings of the dead. "One soldier of the soul, but a ring of movement, 30 gold coins. I will become rich," he joyfully shouted, holding a ring and a spear in his hands. All depressed but not giving up, he got up and thought that no matter how strong you are, you must remember that I, the elder brother, became the winner. Our hero remembered his favorite, went up and took him, asking if he was waiting for him. Andrian told him that he was injured and needed to go home. The bird allegedly winked at him. "It's nice to know that someone is waiting for you at home." After some time, the hero was already in the building. He said that the mission was accomplished and offered the animal to meet his sister. Walking further, he met a girl, and they were immediately surprised to see the hero. They immediately ran up to the little bird, talked about what they wanted to hug and kiss. The The boys who were eating watermelons stood aside. They did not understand what the girls found in the main character. After playing with the birdhouse, everyone was happy. The girls, the pet, and our hero. The boys were even more upset. They did not understand anything. Are you ashamed? Do you want your little sister to sleep in the same bed with you? Such phrases came to the boys. They just had a headache. And then Maya appeared. The main character informed her that now they have a child. She was so happy that she immediately ran to pick them up and thank the hero. Andrian was even saddened by such kindness of his girlfriend. But suddenly, he was surprised by something. Maya immediately asked if he was in pain. But the already satisfied hero replied that he seems to have become stronger. The friend did not even know what to answer. She took the animal in her arms and asked the hero not to do everything alone next time, because he would not have enough strength. Remember, you have me, she added. Our hero listened to her carefully, but also remembered what was happening to him. He was embarrassed and scratched his head. After some time, they said goodbye. The friend took the chick for a few days so that Andrian could rest. Going down the stairs, the main character realized how tired he was. He regretted not admitting this to himself sooner. Having begun to lightly beat himself on the cheeks, the hero thought about why he couldn't just be happy. Approaching home, our hero was very scared, because his brothers were waiting for him in the bushes. They shouted, "The star has returned." The hero was already going to defend himself. "What other star, me or what?" He addressed them in a flirtatious voice. They began to prove to him that if a man goes out and enters without hindrance to the top where only women are, then he has already been recognized as the most handsome man of the imperial gates. The boys suddenly fell to their knees. They continued to argue, talking about what our hero is the idol of all students and whether they can join him. Boldly and quickly, the main character answered that it is easy, but you need to pass several criteria. Beautiful face is the first criterion named by the hero. But here they abruptly ran away with the words that it is already time to sleep. Andrian got angry and asked not to go because he had not finished. Speaking quietly to himself, he mentioned two more factors: good character and well-readness. Meanwhile, the boys allegedly condemned him. Struggle is the best way to improve self-improvement. Our hero meditated and thought about the fact that in a few months he will be able to get to the festival of the ninth heaven. Looking at his ring, he did not understand whether these medicines could restore energy afterwards. The main character decided to try it, threw it into his mouth, and thought that it seemed to have some effect. He decided to try one more. Aren't the golden pills so effective? He wondered. Imagine, he ate everything with the thought that the golden heavens would meet him. And here, he breaks away from the ground and begins to fly. The hero was frightened. Suddenly it becomes dark, and he no longer understands where he is. After making a click, he easily summoned the sword of the devil. Strange objects appeared in the sky, but the hero was surprised that it was the power of 13 moon swords. After that, the hero realized that he would capture the 9 heavens. Once you have mastered the moon mind skill and raised it to level 9, you will be able to control the 13 moon sword technique. After his adventure, he was already on the ground and was thinking how he would tell all this to his girlfriend. But suddenly, a man appeared in front of him and asked if he was Andrian. In appearance, it was a young man. Behind him stood his wards. Our hero, the answer is yes, it is him. The man immediately attacked the hero. It was unexpected. The protagonist assessed his strength. Quite strong, he thought. The wards standing behind were shocked that our hero was able to deflect the attack. "What do you need from me?" asked the hero. To which the opponent said that our hero has good strength. Suddenly, brothers appeared, who announced that this is a person who will personally teach our hero justice today. The hero realized that these were the next brothers of his past rivals. He also added that he then taught them a lesson. The man replied that even if he reported to the master, his opinion would not change. Andrian inquired what he wanted from him. He immediately replied that he wanted to fight one-on-one. Resolutely, our hero answered that he was born a winner. The opponent immediately added that they are fighting to the death. The wards began to support their boss, saying that he is the master of the Imperial Gate, and our hero is an upstart. 2 pansies, whom the hero met while visiting, came to him. They began to condemn the rival of the main character. Tan, Andrian's rival, declared that he would fight on the same level as him. He threw a flask at him with the words that, if our hero comes to the challenge, then they will meet in the main ring. And if not, then he will die right now. Seizing, the main character answered, he accepts the conditions. While leaving, one of the wards said, "Just try to run away." Our hero wondered who this Tan is. People talked only about this situation. Our hero has beaten his cousin, and Tang has come to take revenge. This man holds the 3 spades in fear. He is also the second head disciple in the Imperial Gate. The hero scratched his ear while sitting in some small house. He thought about the fact that he had only to accept the challenge, and why the opponent refused to listen to him. Suddenly, a knock on the door. The main character thought that his friend Maya came. Turns out it was old Lou. The hero kindly offered to enter the house. The foreman said that it was too early for him and Tan to fight. He wants to ask the ringmaster to cancel their fight. The hero did not expect such an offer, and thanked the old man. But he immediately added that there was no need, because the contract was to fight on equal terms. The hero cannot refuse this challenge. I respect your decision, and I hope you will be okay, Liu replied calmly. He already wanted to go, but the protagonist asked him not to hurry. Our hero sighed. In a second, Maya appeared at the door with a chick. The hero was simply stunned and very frightened. In a loud voice, he began to ask what she was doing here. Are you completely out of your mind? How did you agree to this, I forbid, she said, referring to the battle. Our hero stroked her head and asked if she would come to cheer him up. After a moment of silence, she agreed. The friend sharply turned away from him and asked herself why she was suddenly embarrassed. But who will cheer for you? I have a lot of work for now, she said. In the doorway, she asked for a promise that the hero would return safe and sound. He agreed. The day has come. The ring of the Imperial Gate is full of people, and everyone is placing bets. There were also brothers who supported Andrian. They worried about him. The Watcher crawled out her power towards Nat. Powers allegedly emanated from him. The observer stated that he had reduced the opponent's strength to the level of our hero's strength. Suddenly, someone from the crowd calls the main character. The man did not warn him. Nat's power has been reduced, but he is already at the level of perfecting the god of the realm of illusions. Thank you, Brother Chico. I'm in your favor, the main character happily replied. Nat turned to the hero, asked why he was delaying, and asked him to begin. Our hero has adjusted and has a confident look. Touching the ground, he began his attack. Get it, you bastard, our hero said as he approached his opponent, activating his power. Suddenly, an alleged ball of fire appeared. Andrian launched a mountain road straight to his opponent. Maya and the chick were also present. She shouted to him with all her might with words of support. Among the milk generation, there are many people who can hit me, and it is good that you are capable of it. But it is a pity that you are destined to die today, Nat said in a calm voice. Our hero replied that he was tired of listening to his monologue and when he would start acting. The opponent adjusted, folded his arms and activated his power. Spreading his hands, he said that now our hero will learn to appreciate praise. Very quickly, he launched his magic into the main character. She flew like a bullet. Our hero got a little scared. He immediately thought that the opponent was good with the sword, so he rose to the level of fencing. Nat's wards praised the boss, talking about good swordsmanship. The owner of the ring realized that the swordsmanship had greatly improved, and asked old Lou that he was thinking about it because the hero seemed to be in danger. The old man agreed with him. Loudly addressing Andrian, the opponent declared that 30 swords were still waiting for him. Our hero activated his power. In that case, I will draw my sword, said our hero. Swords flew at him, but he expected it. Our hero made a dome and all the swords just broke. Nat was in shock. Maya was also surprised at what her friend was doing. Interesting, said the opponent. The battle continued. Nat turned around with the phrase, did the hero expect such a moment? At what? He was very surprised. Our hero simply disappeared after each step. He ran in a circle until the opponent could see him with huge eyes and did not understand what was happening. The people who supported Nat were already angry and upset. The opponent stood alone, and Andrian was many. That's the situation. The man was so angry that power emanated from him everywhere. Suddenly an explosion, all the clones of our hero flew away, stopping the smoke left. What did you freeze? Suddenly asked the hero from behind Nat. The opponent was stunned. It seems that everything is not smooth with the opponent. The battle continues. There was physical contact where they both hit each other. Blood flowed from Andrian's mouth. Directing their forces against each other, they were supposedly one golden line of resistance between each other. Absolutely all the people around seemed to freeze for a moment. Nat was insanely angry. He understood that our hero was insanely clever. Andrian also assessed the opponent's strength, and came to the conclusion that he really is not an ordinary person. You freaked me out, Nat said of the main character. Our hero reminded his opponent that it was his idea to fight not for life, but for death. Speaking such shameless things will make everyone despise you, added the main character. Nat was furious. He immediately rushed to attack the hero. He seemed completely confident as he activated his sword. Our hero turned away and wanted to remind again that arrogant people often do not live long. After these words, the protagonist firmly clenched his fist. The opponent was scared when he saw it. In a second, he flew away from the power of our hero. It was epic. People were simply shocked by this turn of events, and Maya only happily praised Andrian. Having landed, Nat called out the name of our hero. He was so angry that his eyes were bleeding. "Today I will kill you," he said. The main character allowed himself to laugh a little. But suddenly, he didn't feel like joking anymore. There was a big bright explosion. In the middle of the ring there was a hole, ashes, and only our hero. During the explosion, Andrian turned away because he felt something was wrong. He thought that if he hadn't turned away, he would have definitely been badly injured after such a divine light. Nat disappeared, and the friend of the hero began to speak about these mysterious temptations used by the rival. The Watcher immediately told her to shut her mouth, because there are no rules in a fight to the death. "You scoundrel, shame on you! You can't even call this a battle using arcane arts, Grandpa!" This was the answer heard by the ringmaster. He was completely surprised by such behavior. The observer was so indignant that he was ready to teach a lesson on behalf of the mining master. Max immediately added that he simply intimidates the younger ones. Old Luke joined this conversation and asked the miner not to be angry, not to let me down to the junior level. "Outrageous to be so rude," said the Watcher, and directed his firepower. Old Luke was terribly frightened, because this power is much greater than ordinary peaks. "If you touch even one of her hairs, I will kill your whole family," cried Andrian, who noticed it. It was supposedly some kind of gas. Maya and the chick started coughing, but suddenly it began to decrease. It was a woman, one of Maya's sisters from the crowd, who began to correct the situation. The mountain master immediately noticed that the sister appeared on time and asked to control his student. She turned to Vin, the mining master, saying that she was her student, and she had the right to punish her. He replied that the youth did not respect the elders. Yana, Maya's teacher, had not brought her up well. He pointed to a girl in the crowd and said that she would now be punished. Our hero has already lost patience. He suddenly activated his power. She was so strong that the hero thought that he would take care of his son first. Here Nat appeared with a question about how our hero became so strong in a second. "Swindler!" shouted Andrian. "No, I can't lose like that!" shouted the opponent, swinging. But our hero did not stand aside. The main character supposedly took his power into his fist and directed it directly at the opponent. The flash of magic was great. Nat flew back again like a ball. Our hero did not stand still and decided to continue the fight in flight. The opponent fell to the ground from another hit by the hero's magic. Jumping back, Andrian used his magic again. Clones of our hero started running around Nat again. He was frightened by their number. Again, a big flash. Each clone allegedly began to attack the opponent. He covered himself with his hands. The man did not hold back and used his powerful magic. After all the clones disappeared, everything was up in smoke. Angry Nat turned to a certain Lilu. He asked him to enter the ring. A man named Lil responded, but our hero did not stand still. He again jumped high into the sky. Landing, everything was in his golden magic like an explosion. The ground was cracking, the opponent was coughing and short of breath. The observer jumped up from his seat and shouted the hero's name. "You insulted my son, defend yourself," shouted the miner. Yandv stood in front of our hero. She said that his son had already won the battle, and did he want to interfere in it? But the master answered her that if something happened to his son, the Maiden of the Mountains and the main character would pay. "You're an old man who broke your word," Maya shouted from the crowd. The mountain master heard her and asked how dare she speak like that. The woman again turned to the observer with the words that he should not blame her in the future if it all collapses. "The world is huge and endless. There are things that you and I cannot understand," said the woman. The man simply remained silent. Meanwhile, our hero ran straight to the opponent. He began to beat him with his hands and feet, at the same time talking about how that old man dared to try to hurt Maya. Maya rejoiced at these words and said to kill something in this pig's head. Suddenly, our hero was frightened by something. Allegedly, some kind of dome appeared. He quickly began to jump back from his opponent. Meanwhile, the battered Nat got up and announced that he had underestimated our hero and would now kill him with a sword The crowd was shocked that he took out his sword. Old Luke told the horoscope master that this sword contained precious stones of great power, to which I received the answer that the power of the sun was reduced, as well as the power of the sword. "At worst, Andrian will only have enough protection for his leg. Don't panic," he said. Old Luke was furious after these words. The adversary said that he would gladly take his life for the humiliation he had just suffered. But our hero, as before, looked confident. In a second, the main character was right in front of Nat with the words, "Does he want to live?" Suddenly, the hero appeared with his fiery spear. They both swung at each other, their powers floating in the air. Nat immediately wondered where our hero got this weapon. People were shocked. They talked about the fact that the hero blocked the opponent, because he also had a ranked weapon. Yana said it was a first-class spirit weapon, a spirit spear. Maya watched and did not take her eyes off. Suddenly, there is a huge explosion, but the heroes are back in their positions, ready to continue the battle. Nat asked himself if his weapon had won. Our hero did not expect to receive such a cool spiritual tool. He got it in the last battle. The opponent did not give up. He was confident. After using his power, everything around him seemed to be on fire. Andrian was not jokingly surprised by Nat's self-confidence. "Even if my power is limited, I can still defeat you," shouted the opponent. He pushed off the ground and jumped up with a fiery spear. A moment, and the heroes hit each other with their weapons. The atmosphere was tense. Light lines envelop absolutely everything. It blinds the eyes, and no one sees anything. People around were frightened. They screamed and ran back. Meanwhile, the battle continued. "You're going to die if you keep annoying me," said Nat. But it seems that our hero jumped back. He really did not expect such tension from his opponent. Hero Nat took advantage of the moment and once again used the power of the sword against the main character. Andrian just flew back with a great roar. You can imagine, even stones flew with the hero. After regaining consciousness, our hero began to cough up blood. From the look, it was clear that he was not in the best condition. But raising his face, he did not lose confidence in himself. "Don't blame me, Nat, if you die," the hero said softly. The main character decided to activate the dream with the help of a ring. Now he had a spear and a sword in his hands. Once again, everything was in fire and magic, but somewhere far away stood a rival. Nat was angry. He did not understand where the opponent had gone. But 1 second later, our hero was standing right in front of his opponent. He stood like a pillar, not understanding what was happening. Suddenly, there is no hand. Our hero used a spear. In this way, he cut off the opponent's hand. Nat was frightened and did not understand where his hand was. The protagonist was shocked by his act, but continued to move confidently. Even with the injury, the opponent was ready to avenge the hand. "What are you going to do?" Nat asked angrily and loudly. His appearance was not the best. He was covered in scratches. A minute later, he was lying on the floor without moving. The main character announced that this fight will end here and now. "Freak!" shouted a man from the crowd. He even broke a wooden table with magic. This was a mining foreman. He was not fit. Screamed and everything around just became a hurricane. The Watcher used his power towards our hero. Andrian flew to the side. The Master just jumped up and decided to attack the hero. It flew right in front of him. Maya was confused by this turn of events. She was very worried about the main character. Suddenly, a great flash of magic. It was golden and blinded everyone's eyes. After big smoke, nothing is clear. People around are scared. Opening his eyes, our hero informed Master Leela that the outcome of this battle had already been decided. Sister Jana stood in front of the hero and created a large dome that protected them. "Your son's skills are not good enough, and you still feel no shame after that?" she asked the mining master, while he tried to attack them. The sister asked Master Niso if he had finished looking at them, and if it was time for him to announce the results of the battle. In a modest and quiet voice, the observer announced that Andrian had won the battle to the death. In a modest and quiet voice, the observer announced that Andrian had won the battle to the death. He rose into the air like a flash. Like a shuriken flew around everyone. He approached the practically killed Natu. Mountain Master Lil asked him not to move. Suddenly, the master thought and asked to wait and listen to his opinion. Standing up, he asked everyone not to forget that our hero cheated, because it was all about his weapons. Only thanks to her and various tricks did he defeat his son. Finally, the master asked to take this into account, to which Sister Yana, without thinking for a long time, said, "Everyone who is here has seen with their own eyes. It is clear to everyone that your son's skills are weaker. How long will you continue to make excuses?" She turned to the master while he tried to heal his son. Evil Lil said that the sister could not have noticed, but he is sure that our hero was playing tricks, but he did not see how. He pressed what? His sword has a strange energy, and in his opinion, it is definitely a demonic weapon. After these words, our hero began to laugh loudly, but Yana's sister suddenly turned to the hero with a surprised face. "Dishonest old man, what do you think? Everything happened only because of my blade. Do you refuse to accept defeat until the end?" answered our hero to the master's suggestions. It seems that our hero took the mass in his hands and with the help of the ring, took the demonic powers from the sword. In a second, he held out his sword and announced that they would help take it, examine it, and render their verdict. The observer Niso answered our hero's words. He said that now they will check what this sword is. The check has started. The master said that this sword has a very stable spiritual energy. In a few minutes, with certainty, Niso's observer reported that the sword was clean, and the accusations were false. Master Lil was shocked. His eyes turned red. He didn't understand how Andrian won. Suddenly, the crowd started shouting at our hero. They were happy about his victory. The main character was confused. Maya and everyone else were overjoyed. People began to climb the platform with shouts about the victory of the hero. People lifted him up and began tossing him into the air as a sign of his victory. Mining Master Lil took his son in his arms and announced that they were leaving. The next day, everyone at the top of our hero discussed his victory, and there was not a single person who did not know about the victory of the main character. While everyone was discussing the hero, he was far from celebrating. Our hero was already at another peak with Maya. He was holding a sheet of paper with a secret task. The hero was in no mood to go, but his friend encouraged him. "Move your hooves," she said. But the thought of the journey in 6 days did not leave the hero. Sea of the setting sun. At this time of the year, the tides are small. After him, the heart of the sea will remain aground, and Andrian's mission is to retrieve it. The landscape was incredible, and our heroes reached the sea. The sun shone brightly and the sea was calm. Nothing portended trouble, but our hero was not well at all. He vomited and was not ready to continue the journey. Maya sat down on a stone to wet her feet. At that time, the main character said that he could endure anything for the sake of such a mission with a beautiful girl. But suddenly his thoughts led him there. "Where are you looking, you pervert? Thinking about something wrong again?" Maya shouted. To which the hero replied that his thoughts were pure. A friend reported that this time she forgives him. Our hero thought about the fact that this time the task of the mystical level is quite simple. Suddenly the protagonist saw 2 women on the seashore. He wondered what they were doing here, and immediately thought that true enemies would always cross paths. Maya asked the hero what happened. Our hero replied that he just saw 2 acquaintances. As he was leaving, he said that he was not very familiar with them. Maya was surprised that he knew someone else here. One of them wondered about Maya. Could there really be such beautiful girls in this world? They began to confidently move towards our heroes. "Will you allow me, Van, disciple of the Elder, to know your name and where you are from?" Coming up and asking Maya, one of them. "They say the truth that a fisherman sees a fisherman from afar. He acts exactly the same as one of the past," our hero thought to himself, rolling his eyes. Following his girlfriend, our hero told Van not to run far. His mother told him to return for dinner. The man was surprised. He did not understand who our hero was and why he was saying something like that. "That's the beggar," said the second person. Van did not understand her friend's words. Maya stopped. "You are a beggar yourself," she said loudly. The atmosphere became tense. A girl named Lucy turned to the friend of the hero. "Whore, who are you to call me that?" she asked. The main character tensed up. Because of them, the task becomes more difficult. In a moment, he hit the hero and asked him to close his mouth. Lucy was shocked how our hero dared to hit her. Vaughn said that his strength is much higher than that of our hero's girlfriend. "You're a common scumbag. Why don't you protect the mountain? How dare you come down and hit the outer disciple?" Wang finally said to our hero. It seems that the student was not joking. "A watchdog should be a watchdog," he said. A second later, Van was hit in the face by a blow from our hero. He did not listen to others' chatter for long. The main character also began to use his power to suppress the opponent. Jumping up, he swung his leg at Van, who was lying on the ground, covering his head with his hands. The hero chose a good position and started kicking the opponent. "A few days of regeneration and you think you've become immortal?" our hero asked as he continued to throw punches. "Garbage," was uttered by the main character after finishing. While Lucy ran over to her friend lying on the floor, our hero returned to his friend Maya and was sharply surprised. Looking at her, he said that, in general, he is a good person, the friend thought. Our heroes moved away. As night fell, many people came to the beach in search of the heart of the sea. However, at night the calm of the sea was destroyed by many waves. Approaching the shore, our hero wondered what had happened to nature that night. Suddenly a big red wave began to cover them. "Be careful!" shouted the main character. After a second, the wave action suddenly stopped. Our heroes were frightened. "It seems that some strange force is blocking the way," thought Andrian. At that time, the people behind them started talking about what? "This is Lord Poseidon." They were wildly happy at his appearance. Suddenly, people from above flew on magical swords. They were ready to take the heart of the sea. "Hurry up, pervert!" Maya shouted to him, flying up. Andrian was nervous because if he used the sword, he would get sick again. Having moved further from the sea, he prepared to run. Having sped up, he bent upwards with the words, "Heart of the sea, I'm coming." After these words, he dove right into the water. The hero jumped into this red water, the great sea. The sea was so strange that our hero supposedly passed through dimensions. Taking air in his mouth and opening his eyes, he thought. Looking in all directions and sailing further and further, he did not understand where the promised heart of the sea was. He didn't have enough air. The main character decided to get out of the water. He took a deep breath. Afterwards, he saw many people floating in the sky. They talked about how they couldn't find anything. "You pervert, get in here!" shouted Maya. She was in the boat. At that time, the hero did not understand why there was nothing like the heart of the sea. Andrian was overjoyed to see his girlfriend. She informed him that she had scanned everything here with her divine sense, but found nothing like the heart of the sea. Perhaps it could be very deep. Maya asked to get into the boat, which our hero refused. The main character said that he would swim, but in his head he was thinking about the fact that he can't stand traveling on swords and he has seasickness. He desperately wants to put an end to all transport. But suddenly, the hero was wildly surprised. Looking at the sea, he did not understand where the smell of blood was coming from. A friend ordered to get on the boat immediately. They need to get on urgently. The main character did not understand what was happening. Andrian shouted loudly to everyone around that it was dangerous here. The people above laughed at him. "An ordinary person who can't even fly on a sword and swim thinks they will believe him," said one of them. In a second, the huge tentacles of a large animal grab one of the guys who was flying on a sword. The man screams, but the animal takes him underwater. People around were scared. And here the tentacles take everyone one by one. There is panic around and everyone is screaming. The water turned into a big red tornado. The big water was in the form of a big mouth. Our hero looked at it with his mouth open. Looking at the octopus, he thought about its size and the food that would come out of it. Suddenly, the animal quickly pulled its tentacles out of the water again. A second later, it grabbed our hero. Maya was madly frightened and shouted after him. Andrian was beating the tentacles. He was trying to free himself. "Taste my fist," shouted the main character in relation to the animal. He hit with all his might, as hard as he could. Hanging upside down, the main character thought that even the people of the illusory god were sobbing in pain after his blow. Why was everything okay with this dead octopus? There was horror all around. Everyone was grabbed by tentacles one by one. Maya's friend said that this animal is not even half as cute as a bird. "My dear, you have problems with your eyesight. Where did you see the baby here?" The main character turned to his girlfriend. The hero decided to activate his sword. "Try my sword," said our hero, swinging his sword. Andrian cuts the tentacles and is in the water in a second. Maya's friend watched this and shouted to the hero to protect himself. Several tentacles of a large animal were already flying at the hero. "Now taste this technique," shouted our hero, swinging his sword straight at the animal. The main character allegedly doubled his swords. They flew in all directions. Our hero confidently flew at his new opponent. Suddenly emptiness. Nothing is clear. "What? The Pure Moon 13 sword technique was blocked?" asked our hero as he fell straight into the water. With a nervous face, he looked at everything that was happening and understood that it was not good. "Let him go, bastard!" Maya shouted as she sat on the boat, activating her magic. A big ball of magic flew straight into the water. Explosion, explosion one after another. Something was definitely happening to the animal. The main character crouched because he did not expect this. Maya rose into the air. She flew to save her Andrian. "Strong, she has surpassed the realm of impermanence," said the people around, looking at everything that was happening. Our hero still flew to the sword. He thought about the fact that he did not want to become dinner for the octopus. Surely he decided to jump. The hero grabbed Maya, who was flying. He asked her to fly faster. The friend became angry. "You pervert, you did it on purpose," she said. Suddenly, the main character noticed something strange from the side. "Maya, you're amazing. That old octopus scared you to death," he said to his friend. But the heroine continued to call our hero while flying further. Our heroes flew to Earth. The girlfriend asked the hero to say honestly whether he specifically grabbed her. With lumps on his forehead, he was saying something. She didn't quite understand him. But he thought about what. He was not going to confess. Maya concluded that, based on her analyses, the Sea of the Setting Sun was a very special place. Andrian sneezed. "Of course it is special. Can such a large octopus appear in such a sea?" "Usually they are smaller," answered the main character sitting by the fire. Suddenly the sea roared. The heroes turned and thought another wave was approaching. Some blue heads appeared in the water, and suddenly alleged monsters come out of the water. Maya and the protagonist watched and did not understand what was happening. "You need to escape from here as soon as possible," said our hero about his girlfriend. Suddenly she turned around, noticing something strange. Maya pointed to them and said that they are not coming here, and that there seems to be something here. The main character was surprised. Everything happens the same as with the tide. These monsters looked really scary. The hero wondered what they were eating. They ate the heart of the sea, and it seems that it is just a delicacy for them. Other people also paid attention to this and realized that they were eating the heart of the sea. Maya loudly told the hero to go and get him. Andrian thought. After eating another heart, the protagonist turned to the animal. "Brother, monster," he said loudly. Our hero asked him if he could give one pebble that he had in his hands. The animal squeezed the stone and looked intently at the hero. The monster threw him into his mouth, and Andrian began to scream. "I've been too nice to him, time to get serious," said the main character. He ran sharply at the monster. The hero sharply grabbed the animal's paw. Taking hold of the leg, he lifted it into the air and began to spin it. The hero pushed it out of his hands and the animal flew to the side. A huge monster fell. There was a loud roar. People were watching this. They were shocked by what was happening. The rest of the animals paid attention to our hero. Andrian decided to jump back so as not to expose himself to danger. He ran up to the monster, opened the suit, and announced that he must give him the heart of the sea. Suddenly, the animal simply became stone. The monster disappeared. The heroine thought that they can't go out here, so she just stands there. "What is this?" "My heart of the sea," said the hero loudly and maliciously. Suddenly, he asked Maya to leave. The main character wanted to assess the abilities of these monsters. There were quite a few of them. The main character took a stone in his hands and imbued it with his power. He asked to wait for his girlfriend here. At that time, he was throwing a stone. "Forward," he said, throwing a stone in the direction of the animals.